Emperor of the Desert. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 626, Lawyer. Masquerade. Hearing Qin Ren's words, not only did Marjolaine scream in surprise, but even Marcoses couldn't help but scream. Lost Guide, are you telling the truth? Marcoses changed his address to Qin Ren from boy to Lost Guide, and his attitude became obvious and serious. Masquerade. The Fire Mist Warriors have an organization, and they contact and help through the outside world, and the Red World Apostles naturally have their own organizations. The largest of them is the group called Masquerade, an extremely powerful group. Any Fire Mist warrior who faces the Masquerade alone will only be killed. Whether it is Marjolaine or other Fire Mist warriors, it is the same. It is a powerful organization led by the three pillars of General Thousand Changes Xiu Dinan, the Great Imperial Witch Top Seat Haikati, and the staff anti-rational Judge Belpielu. Facing Xiu Dinan alone, Marjolaine's chances of winning are very low, let alone three. What's more, in addition to the three pillars, the Masquerade also has dozens of Red World Apostles who are as powerful as hers, and the total number of apostles exceeds 1,000. No one can fight against such a huge organization alone. Yes, this is what I found when I was tuning in a city that was devoured by a large amount of the power of existence. Silver and the people from the Masquerade appeared at the same time. Qin Ren half-truthfully mixed the animation plot in his memory into his own real experience. Although I can't be sure, I don't think it's a coincidence. Tuning, the coldness in Marjolaine's beautiful pupils burning with anger slightly dissipated. Tuning, is a way to repair distortion. At the location of the destroyed place, according to the impressions of people who have lived in that city for a long time, through the logic of the implications caused by the elimination of existence, find out the distortions and disharmony of the city's existence, and then use the memory of such aboriginals to use the law of freedom and the power of existence to fine-tune and smooth out these distortions. The torch is ultimately just a buffering means, which can reduce the distortion of the world through buffering. The tuning is to restore the city to its original state as much as possible, but it is only as much as possible. Although the difference in the power of existence between the torch and normal humans is only a little for the Fire Mist warrior, the composition of the torch is different from that of humans. From the perspective of ordinary people, the difference is probably like that between a doll and a living thing. It is very difficult to turn a doll into a living thing. The tuning is only to reduce the distortion as much as possible, but it cannot completely smooth out the distortion. Those missing humans who have been eaten and forgotten will never come back again. To put it in a more vivid way, the destruction of the Red World Apostle is to dig a pit on the ground, which will cause the surrounding terrain to collapse and let the surrounding things fall into the pit, and the torch is to put a buffer net in the pit to prevent the things that fall into the pit from falling directly. But the buffer is just a buffer after all, and the things that fall into the pit will still fall into it, but they will not be broken too much. The tuner is to fill the pit, but filling the pit is just filling the pit, and the original buildings on this land have disappeared. I didn't expect you to be a tuner. Tuning, after all, is also a kind of free method, extended from Fengju. As an excellent free method master, Marjolaine naturally knows it, but she is a combat type, and most free methods are shaped for the purpose of combat. She doesn't know the free method of tuning, or rather, she didn't learn it. One of the reasons I came here is that the distortion here is too big. Qin Ren lied without changing his face. We were attacked by 3 disciples in such a short time. Noble Phantasm Hunter Faragni, Iran Zisarant, Iran Hetilia, and Thousand Changes Xiu Dinan. That's 4. When Qin Ren mentioned the number of disciples, Marjolaine corrected him. Sorry, the perverted brother and sister always act together, like one person. Qin Ren waved his hand. After being attacked by disciples continuously, it's a bit complicated to deal with the distortion of this city. Of course, this is just a superficial statement. The truth is that tuning can deal with the torch openly. The torch is something that the Firefog warriors or disciples set up, and it is not something that exists naturally. Before tuning, The torch is a buffer of distortion and is beneficial, but after tuning, the torch is redundant and needs to be removed for tuning. In other words, it is also a better way to deal with the torch as a source of the power of existence consumed by tuning. In short, if you want to seek revenge on silver, you will most likely not be able to avoid the masquerade in the end. Qin Ren said this, his expression slightly serious. Are you going to die, Miss Margarine? Hearing this, Margarine's cold eyes swept towards Qin Ren, and Qin Ren could see the deep hatred and murderous intent buried in her cold eyes. Although it was not directed at him, Qin Ren did not intend to stay any longer. After all, it seemed that the other party was not in the mood to continue teaching him the free method. Well, Miss Marjolaine, I'll leave first. Although I'm a tuner, my skills are not very good. This city is twisted and complicated, and it takes a little more time to sort out the situation. Also, goodbye, Ravaged Claws. I hope you can calm your contractor down. I hope to see this lady again next time we meet. Stop talking nonsense. You don't need to care about my wine glass. Marco's voice sounded from the giant book. Watching the back of Qin Ren disappearing as the door closed, Marjolaine fell silent. At the same time, somewhere, in a house somewhere, a thin man in a white coat and a light green ponytail was waving a wrench and a screwdriver, hammering at a machine. However, this was not an ordinary scene. The tools that looked extremely ordinary were all wrapped in light. The light green light was spinning, and strange symbols like words were embedded in the circle. Freedom. The glasses that looked like goggles were reflecting light green light. At this moment, without any warning, he suddenly shouted, "Domino here, Professor!" Coming with the response, the sound of metal parts rubbing against each other was heard. The body was more than 2 meters tall, and the appearance was as round as a gas tank, like a robot. On the ball of the head, the spring was wrapped thickly like a bandage to form a mummy-like shape, and a large and a small gear served as eyes. The spring handle protruded from the top of the head to form the outline of the face. The hands and feet were just like the body, which was made of various metal parts randomly pieced together, and there was no trace of polishing. Chapter 627 Lawyer Transfer. After Qin Ren and Ma Qianglun's exposure, it was almost July. The high school vacation was coming soon. However, these had nothing to do with Qin Ren. The Vest Takahashi was no longer the shell he was staying in, but had become a tool man similar to Phosphorus. He was now Takuraka, a fire mist warrior, and he didn't need to go to any classes. He was waiting for the next event to happen. According to the plot, after the Cradle Garden incident of the orthopedic brothers and sisters, it should be the old man Kamsen who came to Miyazaki City as a tuner to tune the city that was gnawed by the Red World Apostles. However, according to the time of the incident, it happened during the summer festival, which was called the Osprey Festival in Miyazaki City. The Osprey Festival is a large-scale fireworks party held along the banks of the Zenin River. It is said that it was originally a groundbreaking ceremony held by the Miyazaki Shrine on the hill north of the residential area, but the detailed origin is no longer traceable, and Qin Ren is not very clear. He had no interest in the 8 million gods of Japan, so he had no motivation to learn about them. He preferred to study things related to the desert. However, he had some knowledge of the summer festival, which appeared in almost all Japanese ACG works. It was also puzzling why the festival was called the Osprey Festival. In China, ospreys are summer migratory birds in the northeast, resident birds in the south, and winter migratory birds or traveling birds in other regions, such as Japan. Winter migratory birds live in a certain area in winter, fly to a farther and colder area to breed in spring, and fly back to the original area in autumn. Although there is a Shinin River in Misaki City, it seems that in Japan, ospreys are mainly distributed in coastal areas, and Misaki City is not close to the sea, so there are no ospreys living there. Speaking of which, July, do you want to go to other cities to try whale meat? Qin Ren thought. It is no longer a new thing for Japan to commercially hunt whales in the name of scientific whaling. It is even more ridiculous to use the excuse of a fishing country. No matter how big the fishing industry is, it is bigger than China. Do you have to hunt whales and dolphins to catch fish? Various self-media outlets have promoted China's support for Japan's scientific whaling as China's support for Japan's commercial whaling, and many people still believe it. They just wailed, but they were so hypocritical to cover up and pretend that China supported Japan's wailing. To be honest, Japan should thank China's self-media outlets for whitewashing them, and they deliberately created the momentum that China supported Japan's wailing. However, Qin Ren is not stupid enough to be led by self-media outlets. When he was still an ordinary person, he might have a debate about whether to kill animals or not, but now, he eats torches, let alone whales. His only thought about whales is what whale meat tastes like. After all, he has never tasted it, so he is still quite curious. Unfortunately, Misaki City is not by the sea, and there is no activity of eating whale meat during the Ocean Festival. The Ocean Festival seems to be the third Monday of July. Japan's Ocean Festival will kill whales and eat meat. Should I go to a city with an Ocean Festival that day to stay for a day and taste it? Qin Ren thought while wandering the street, looking for a place where he could swallow torches under the pretext of tuning. Tuning is not a difficult thing. He has mastered many free methods, so it is not difficult for him to study the free methods extended from Fengju. It's just that he doesn't have enough experience and can't compare with professional tuners. When he repaired the distortions one by one as a tuner, neither Marjolaine nor Shanna found anything unusual. After all, tuning itself requires the removal of torches, and the real purpose of Qin's action was completely unaware. However, just as he was leisurely repairing a distortion caused by Faragni's phosphorus, a breath appeared in his perception. Oh, it's faster than expected. He found a teenager in the mirror sand creature he built with mirror sand and released as a monitor. Or it can be said that it is just a teenager from the perspective of ordinary people. On the street, a short boy wearing a hooded sweatshirt, who looked like a Middle Eastern race, was only about 10 years old, standing in place, slightly raising his chin. His eyes under the hood wandered in the air, and he seemed to have discovered something and was a little puzzled. Then, the boy held his chin with his left hand in an unusually mature manner, and the corners of his scarred mouth opened and closed, muttering to himself, "It has been tuned, but only in parts." Well, it seems that this city has been continuously eroded by multiple disciples, and the distortion is also somewhat complicated. However, judging from the repair method, it should not be a skilled tuner. The source of the voice was the two knots on the middle finger of the boy's left hand, which were made of colorful glass beads and extended from the back of his hand to the sleeve. Accompanied by the dazzling flowing light, it was an old and hoarse voice. But it seems that he has a good grasp of the direction of the distortion. Is it the free method that is good at perception, or did he scout this city for a long time, carefully grasp the characteristics of the disciples, and repair the distortion according to the characteristics? It is also possible that he fought against the fire mist warriors of the disciples, the boy said as he stood still, and the end of the white bandage wrapped around the cylindrical giant stick hanging on his back, which was taller than his height, fluttered slightly. Although the progress is a bit slow, the repair is still good. The hoarse voice of an old man from the knot made an evaluation. Anyway, judging from the progress, the other party should still be in Misaki City and not leave. Let's find him and cooperate with each other to complete the tuning. This will at least speed up the progress by 30%. As he said, the boy's eyes under the hood scanned the surroundings, and then, "Ah, I found it." The boy walked straight towards the mirror sand creature placed by the Qin people. Is this the freedom method for monitoring? Probably. It can feel the feeling like eyes. Is it used to check whether the distortion has increased or worsened? I don't know. It may also be for monitoring disciples or phosphorus. According to the news from the outside world, there are 2 demon kings among the disciples who attacked this city. Talking with his contracted demon king, the young fire mist warrior came to the mirror sand creature and poured the power of existence into the mirror sand creature. "Ah, hello, I am also a tuner." In an old man's tone, the boy used the mirror sand creature as a communicator and talked to himself. P.S. I don't know the exact distribution of ospreys in Japan. This is how the author Shanna explained the Osprey Festival. I also checked and found that Misaki City is also an imaginary city. I only found a station called Misaki. The shape of the bridge does not seem to be the Kobe Bridge, but the Rainbow Bridge. The temporary research failed, and I don't know which city's summer festival the Osprey Festival is a pseudonym for. so I just wrote it down. Chapter 628, Kamsin the Dressed Rider. I am the guide to the lost Bakura, the white-haired Qin Ren said, and then used the necklace as the source of the voice, and said, I am the Wheel of Wisdom Bakura. I have only been a fire mist warrior for 2 years, it's not long, please give me more advice. In response, the boy standing in front of Qin Ren and the knot necklace on his wrist also made voices to introduce themselves one after another. I am the Dressed Rider Kamsin, just call me Kamsin. I am the unbreakable peak behemoth, just call me Behemoth. It was Kamsin as expected. Although he looks like a 10-year-old boy, these two people participated in the ancient fire mist warriors who exiled the ritual snake to the gap between the two worlds, and his contracted demon king, Behemoth. The word behemoth is a name transliterated from Japanese pronunciation into Chinese, and his original name is Behemoth, or Behemoth, according to the Christian Bible. It is one of the creatures originally created by God. It is a giant beast that can devour 1,000 mountains every day. In the cultural changes of later generations, it was named as a demon and became a greedy king. If you are still unfamiliar with it, then its variant in Arabic due to the pronunciation of the language, Bahamut, should be well known to everyone. As for whether its prototype is Tavar, the god of production in Egyptian mythology, Qin Ren is not sure. As a fanatic of desert culture, Qin Ren would naturally know it, not to mention, he once killed the extremely fast Thunder Prince in the world of God Killer and seized the power of Behemoth. In a sense, is there a connection? Qin Ren's meaningful words also made Kamsin puzzled for a while, and asked in a voice that was inconsistent with his appearance, "What's wrong?" Although the voice was childish, the tone was as deep as that of an old man. "No, I just didn't expect to see so many famous fire mist warriors here." Qin Ren certainly didn't talk about the origins of these names, Flame Hair Burning Eyes, and the Eulogy Chanter, and now the Dressed Riders. This city is really an incredible place. I see. Is it the minions of the heavenly tribulation fire and the ravage? Behemoth's voice came from Kamsin's knotted bracelet. I felt several lures before, but I didn't expect it to be the minions of the heavenly tribulation fire and the ravage. Didn't the battle maniac of the minions of the ravage cause trouble to the heavenly tribulation fire? Kamsin's eyes also moved down and turned to Qin Ren again. Of course they did, but the crusader of the flame hair burning eyes lost. Qin Ren shrugged. Really? That little girl hasn't mastered the flames of the heavenly tribulation fire yet? Kamsin seemed to be quite familiar with Shanna, and also knew that Alistair had changed his contractor. Since it's them, there's no need to say hello. Just tune it, Kamsin. Behemoth's old voice sounded. Yeah. Kamsin nodded, then looked at Qin Ren and said, "You should have been tuning for a while." Next, I will help you finish the tuning as soon as possible. Unlike Marcoses and Marjolaine, who were ready to fight at the slightest disagreement, and not as strong as Shanna, Kamsin's words also surprised Qin Ren. Whether in terms of qualifications, strength or ability, Kamsin is several steps higher than him, the fake fire mist warrior, but he didn't say anything like next, I will tune it, and you will assist me. It's really mature. Looking at this young old man who is unknown how many thousands of years old, Qin Ren shook his head. You should take the lead and finish the tuning as soon as possible. His tuning is actually more about swallowing the torch, with himself taking the lead and Kamsin assisting. The other party can see the trick at a glance, right? Since he couldn't do anything to the devouring torch, he didn't want to bother with any tuning work. He could just watch from the side and learn some free methods. The Qin people wisely gave in, and Kamsin just nodded and accepted it calmly. Under normal circumstances, it would be better for him to take the lead in the tuning. He said that he would assist from the side just to avoid unnecessary conflicts. After all, there are still many guys with bad tempers like the minions of the Ravage. Of course, he was not afraid. He was not a non-combat fire mist warrior. So, where is the assistant you chose? Since he had decided on the matter, Kamsin immediately prepared to start working. He wanted to finish the tuning as soon as possible and rush to the next city to continue tuning. Ah, I haven't chosen an assistant yet. The Qin people certainly didn't choose any assistant. No helpers. Hearing this, Kamsen was stunned. People who know the world of the Fire Mist Warriors and the Disciples have a world that includes the existence of the Fire Mist Warriors and the Disciples. If they want to tune, they cannot choose related people as helpers, but can only choose local people who don't know the situation, because if they don't know the situation, some other situations will occur. So at most, they can let the other party know the situation before tuning, but in any case, the existence of the tuner is necessary. It is necessary to adjust the power of existence based on the scenes in the memory of the helper as a prototype, and then repair the distortion. Ah, but I have a good candidate. Qin Ren's mouth curled up slightly, revealing a sunny smile. I was going to explain to her these days and ask her for help. Really? Then go find her. Hearing Qin Ren's words, Kamsen nodded without any doubt. Then let's go. Misaki High School. A group of men and women are carrying items up and down the stairs. Really? We asked Tanaka and Sato to help, but they refused. If there were more boys, they would be able to help a lot. The somewhat boyish girl walked down the stairs carrying boxes while talking to her friends. Ogata, you actually wanted to see Tanaka, right? Yes. Matake, do you want us to help? The girl who was with her joked with a smile. No. Don't talk nonsense. The girl named Ogata Matake denied it subconsciously, but she couldn't hold it in under the teasing eyes of her friends. So what? Aren't you the same? Yamashita and Kobayashi from Class 3 and Class 4, faced with Ogata Matake's counterattack, the two girls also became shy, but they quickly shifted the focus of the fight and turned their attention to another girl next to them. Yoshida, what about you? The boy you like, huh? Why are you talking about me all of a sudden? Who can you hide it from? You're so obvious and even made a lunchbox. Yoshida Kazumi was about to answer, but her eyes suddenly caught two figures at the bottom of the stairs. A white-haired young man and a brown-skinned boy about 10 years old appeared there at some point, and seemed to be staring at her. Chapter 629, 10,000 Skillful Hands. At the same time, on the other side, a young woman dressed in a blue dress, a white headdress and an apron, who was obviously dressed as a maid, appeared in Misaki City. She carried a huge package on her back that would overwhelm even a mountaineering expert, attracting the attention of passers-by. She blinked and looked around, as if she was looking at something. Something has indeed happened. It's confirmed. From above her head, another female voice came from the maid's sash. Masquerade. 0 hour lost. We must intervene. The maid took out a piece of paper from her pocket, then glanced around, determined the direction and position, and continued to move forward. At Yoji Sakai's house, Shanna was training Yoji Sakai without mercy. Too stupid. With a scolding, Shanna's wooden sword easily bypassed Yoji Sakai's wooden sword and hit him on the head. Ah! Yoji Sakai fell to the lawn in the yard with a subconscious cry of pain. Because I didn't close my eyes when I was attacked. I was so proud. It's still too early. However, Shanna has been acting strange recently. She has been like this since she went out for a run a few days ago wearing the necklace. She often puts on a sour face. Although she has always put on a sour face, it is rare for her to remain silent when asked. Whether it is daytime training or special training using the power of existence at night, she inexplicably distances herself from him. No matter how hard she thinks, she can't figure out the reason. If she asks, she will only get a few scoldings. Does Shanna really like him? Thinking of what Takahashi said before, Yoji Sakai was a little confused. Sure enough, Shanna still treats him as a mistress in a torch, right? And when he was distracted, in Shanna's direction, Alistair's rebuke came from the pendant on Shanna's chest. Yoji Sakai, what are you doing? Yes, I'm sorry. After apologizing subconsciously, Yoji Sakai came back to his senses, stood up again with a wooden sword in his hand, and got ready. None of the three noticed that the fifth Fire Mist Warrior was approaching the small house. At the school gate, holding an object that looked like a monocle, Kazumi Yoshida glanced at the white-haired young man and the brown-skinned boy standing beside her, and hesitantly put the lens in front of her eyes. She was not nearsighted, and the scenery she saw through the blurry lens was also slightly blurry. But what is that? Kazumi Yoshida asked uneasily. In her field of vision, among the several people passing by the school gate, there was a person whose body, located below the heart, in the middle of the body, had a ball of light blue flame burning. When she moved the lens away, she saw nothing. When she moved it back again, the flame would appear again. That is a torch. The residue left after humans were gnawed by the Red World Apostles. Khamsin's calm eyes watched Yoshida's expression change, and she said calmly that made the girl's daily life begin to crumble. At this moment, with a loud bang, ultramarine flames suddenly landed in front of the three people. What? It's the old man. I thought it was someone else. Such a strong aura. Ahahaha. Old man, are you here to be a maintenance worker again? Accompanied by a familiar voice, a figure landed in front of Qin Ren. Elegy chanter, the minions of Ravage. Khamsin and Behemoth beside Qin Ren spoke at the same time. It was the elegy chanter Margarine Du and the minions of Ravage Marcoses who appeared in a gorgeous way as usual. Through the lens, Yoshida Kazumi also saw the ultramarine flames lingering around Margarine. No, she didn't need the flames to find that this was an extraordinary fantasy scene. A mature blonde beauty like a model fell from the air stepping on books. This couldn't be normal at all. What on earth is it? Yoshida Kazumi couldn't help but take a step back. It seems that it is not so easy to accept, but it's okay. At least he didn't yell like the last assistant. Khamsin said calmly in an old man's tone, Elegy chanter, I need to tune the piano. Don't disturb my work. I'm not interested in how you repair it. Margarine glanced at Yoshida Kazumi, and then turned her eyes to Qin Ren. I just came to confirm whether the other breath that appeared was you, the bastard. It seems not. After Margarine's voice sounded, Marcos's voice sounded. What happened? Qin Ren shrugged innocently. With the identity of the Fire Mist Warrior, he would naturally try to suppress his breath as much as possible, so that he would not be considered strange if he suddenly disappeared when he needed to act. A new breath. Margarine went straight to the point, and although she called Qin Ren a bastard, her attitude was completely different from usual. Qin Ren didn't know if it was his illusion. A new breath? Hearing this, Qin Ren and Khamsin looked at each other. Yes, over there. Margarine pointed back with her right thumb. There are auras in two directions at the same time. With me and the little girl with flaming hair and burning eyes, there are 4 of them. Of course I have to confirm it, but now it seems that there are more than 4. Margarine eliminated most of the auras, making the auras seem to float on Qin Ren, who seemed to be an ordinary person. There are 3 here. The little ghost with flaming hair and burning eyes is with Brother Mistis. So, who is over there? Margarine turned her head and said, It's the same as your aura, old man. They are all very strong. Khamsin closed his eyes and sensed it. Probably. It looks like a fire fog warrior. Qin Ren couldn't help but connect with the mirror sand creature he released when he heard it. A kitten lying on the roof to rest suddenly stood up, walked to the edge of the roof with a quick step, and scanned the bottom. The appearance of the maid with a big backpack was reflected in the kitten's eyes. If I'm not mistaken, it should be 10,000 skillful hands. Cutting off the line of sight, Qin Ren rubbed his eyes. Everyone knows about the masquerade, so you came to Misaki City? I haven't informed the outside world yet. Hearing this, Khamsin interrupted, I came here after getting the news from the outside world. And Ma Qianglin said the next moment, oh, I notified them. Hearing her words, Qin Ren couldn't help but say, we can't be sure about the actions of the masquerade yet. If we mobilize the Fire Mist Warriors too early, it will be difficult to deal with other places. Although, even if Ma Qianglin didn't say it, he would say it. Chapter 630 Unfounded Suspicion. It was already the 3rd day after Khamsin arrived, but the distorted tuning work had not yet officially started, because, as an assistant, Yoshida Kazumi was not mentally prepared. Is the Jite Taurus still in the hands of that little sister? Qin Ren smiled with narrowed eyes, showing a completely different personality from Takahashi. I thought you would start as soon as possible. Because of Khamsin's existence, he could not collect torches at will to increase the power of existence, so the tuning thing was no longer meaningful to him, and he only needed to watch. It looks like that little girl is not ready yet. Standing on the edge of the rooftop of the building outside Misaki High School, Khamsin looked at the students coming in and out of the school after the weekend, and talked to Qin Ren who was squatting next to him. If you want to tune the piano, You must cooperate with the assistant and recall the previous scene of the city in the free method. Glancing at Yoshida Kazumi, who was traveling with Ike Hayato, Shana and Sakayoji, Kamsen continued, the free method of tuning is basically derived from the seal. The principle of the seal is to isolate the area surrounded by the free method from the cause and effect of the world. At the moment of isolation, the area surrounded by the free method is recorded. It's recorded like a camera takes a photo when the shutter is pressed. As long as the seal is not lifted and the photo is still there, the damaged things can be repaired according to the photo. Of course, the seal is not that simple. After all, it is an excellent free method created by two genius free masters after a long period of transformation, and the principle of tuning is similar to the repair in the seal. But this photo needs to be found. Touching the thick metal stick wrapped with bandages on his back, Kamsen scanned the city and sensed the distortion. The impression of the fire mist warrior includes the existence of the red world such as disciple, torch, fire mist warrior, free law, and treasure. It cannot be used for taking photos, and only ordinary people can be selected. But ordinary people will not cooperate with the free law if they don't know the situation, Qin Ren added, so they can only volunteer. Yes, Kamsen nodded, we can only start when she is ready. After this conversation, the two people standing on the edge of the rooftop were ready to leave again. The tuning is centered on the distortion point. With the help of Qin Ren, Kamsen has set up the base point of the free law in the center of each distortion point. The metal pillar formed by the free law of Kamsen's contracted demon King Beheimer stood in the center of those distorted points. It has been completely established in the past 3 days, and it can start as long as Yoshida Kazumi is ready. But it feels a little too smooth. Qin Ren turned his head and looked to the east. If the masquerade is planning something, will they let us repair and distort it? Hearing Qin Ren's perfunctory induction, Kamsen couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. With a frown on his face, he also followed Qin Ren's gaze. Have you found anything? The lost guide? In the past few days of getting along, he also understood the characteristics of this lost guide, a new fire mist warrior. Sharp reconnaissance ability. Although no relevant information was obtained from the outside world, not every fire mist warrior is related to the outside world, just like not every disciple belongs to the masquerade. The masquerade may have any actions that were also found out by this lost guide. I don't know. I just feel something is wrong. Since you came to this city, no, I felt something was wrong before you came to this city, but I can't be sure what's wrong, Qin Ren perfunctorily said with ambiguous words. According to the plot, the crazy professor should have appeared, but Qin Ren did not directly observe him. The mirror sand creatures also did not find the professor in his robot Phosphorus. According to the original book, the professor had tampered with the bird-shaped decorations at the temple fair. However, there was still nearly a month and a half before the temple fair of the summer festival, and he had not found any bird-shaped decorations. He was also wondering what means the professor had used to conceal his identity and set up the freedom method, and he even wanted to conduct a carpet search. Although he did not sincerely stop the actions of the masquerade, he just wanted to profit from the actions of the masquerade. However, there was no conflict between them. If stopping the masquerade could benefit him, then he would stop the masquerade, and if stopping the fire mist warrior could benefit him, then he would also stop the fire mist warrior. If being enemies with both parties at the same time could benefit him, then he would do so. His only goal now was to survive. What is the conspiracy? As a chess piece pushed by two behind-the-scenes masters on the chessboard, he gained power and lived a good life, but there was no benefit without reason. The price was that he was affected not long after he started to obtain it, and his personality was gradually changing. The funny thing was that under the influence of this power, he regarded these changes as natural changes. Even his thoughts were the result of being manipulated. Who can be sure that I am not being manipulated now? Qin Ren thought in his mind, although he realized from the hint left by the main body that he was the backup plan used by the main body to save himself. But was he really the means used by the main body to save itself? rather than part of the plan of the mastermind behind the scenes. It cannot be confirmed. The chain of suspicion is really a terrible thing. Khamsin didn't know what Qin Ren was thinking. He just thought that Qin Ren was talking about the conspiracy that might be prepared for the masquerade. It's a possibility that cannot be ruled out. Khamsin pondered for a while. It just so happens that before Yoshida Kazumi is ready, we need to search Misaki City. Hearing this, Qin Ren came back to his senses from his own affairs. I have already done the search, but I can't be sure. I have been preparing for this period of time. The reason why I haven't conducted any formal tuning is because I am just suspicious. I haven't detected any actual evidence. Although most of the previous words were lies, the last sentence was true. Have you done it? Hearing this, Khamsin, who was about to leave, stopped. Although vigilance is a good thing, groundless suspicion is useless. Behaimard's voice sounded in Khamsin's bracelet. Groundless suspicion. Qin Ren sat down and glanced at the traffic below. If it is groundless suspicion, it would be the best, but what if it is not? If it is not groundless suspicion, but true, then what should he do? Chapter 631 Humanoid radar is really useful. In the evening, under the setting sun, the shadows of buildings and people were dragged out very long, and the shadows cast by the traffic on the road also swayed like flames as the direction changed. Qin Ren was not interested in hanging out with an old man with a youthful appearance all day. Now he went directly to the old Ida department store and found the glass jar. Dantlio, what method did the professor change? He remembered that in the plot, Dandanki Ujiu used Khamsin's tuning and self-repairing method to reverse and expand the function of tuning and repairing distortion, turning it into something like a teleportation array. Qin Ren did not think that this Red World Demon King, who was based on Dantlion and was called a genius self-master, would use the bird-shaped decorations that only appeared at the Osprey Festival as props to hide the self-repair method. He wanted to try to find it through the glass jar, but he did not see anything wrong on the glass jar, except for the mirror sand creatures he placed everywhere. When Takahashi acted as Mistis, his mirror sand would basically be hidden on ordinary people. After all, the glass jar could show his mirror sand creatures. But as a fire fog warrior, he didn't need to worry about these things. He released a large number of mirror sand creatures that looked like scorpions and lizards as eyes. Is it really impossible to find it? Qin Ren sighed. The power of existence is needed when the free method is activated, but that is to say, it is not needed when it is not activated. The glass jar can only show the flow of small-scale power of existence, and large-scale aggregates of power of existence, such as disciples and firefog warriors, cannot be displayed. It seems useless to rely on the glass jar to find it. In this case, I can only use the next plan. I will also make countermeasures based on Khamsin's tuning-free method. Dantlio's method in the animation is to make a teleportation array, so it would be best for me to make a trap for teleportation. But he won't do that. He needs Dantlio's plan to succeed, and he wants to use the other party's plan to benefit himself. So, Qin Ren narrowed his eyes and his sight wandered around the place where he and Khamsin passed in the glass jar. The next morning, before going to school, Yuji Sakai carried out the planned physical training. Compared with the upcoming summer heat, it seems refreshing now. Along the banks of the Manami River, Yuji Sakai jogged along the embankment. This long-distance running special training in the early morning was started after he made up his mind, and Shanna would join him before. However, the training these days was a little different. Shanna was not with him, and neither was Alistair, who after a short pause, Yuji Sakai, who had no professional knowledge, began to breathe. The reason for everything was because of that 10,000 hands. The May lady, who seemed to be Shanna's adoptive mother, took Shanna away and brought her to Hirai's house. Instead, Takahashi trained with him. Using the power of existence is not about making your will and body movements merge into one, so as to control the power of existence, but about each taking a step back and letting the body and will be controlled by the power of existence. Takahashi, who stopped beside him, said with a smile, perhaps because of the same fate and the relationship of being Mistis, Yuji Sakai was able to understand Takahashi's explanation better. To be honest, Shanna is not a good teacher. She doesn't explain what she teaches clearly. Maybe it's because she is also a novice. Sakayuji subconsciously found an excuse for Shanna. In other words, we should use the power of existence to control our fists, instead of wearing armor. Sakayuji half-heartedly imitated the boxing moves he saw in the bookstore and waved his fist. We are torches, not humans anymore. Sakai. Ah, I know. Sakayuji was stunned for a moment, looked at Takahashi standing beside him, and nodded. Our existence itself is maintained by the weak power of existence. If there is no power of existence, we will not exist. Qin Ren said through Takahashi, we need to control our actions in a way other than instinct. Sakayuji pondered for a moment and nodded. Then, he saw Takahashi beside him looking up at the sky. How good would it be if the disciples did not exist in this world? As if noticing his gaze, Takahashi touched his head and smiled. Although this is impossible, I don't want to continue to survive by swallowing other torches, although I know they will disappear soon. But, under the gaze of Sakayuji, Takahashi looked at his palms in confusion. But I still want to live. I want to live as a human being. Listening to Takahashi, Sakayuji opened his mouth, but couldn't say anything. Seeing that the brainwashing of the ritual snake had some effect, Qin Ren did not continue to prevent too much deliberateness from causing counterproductive effects. After a short rest, the two continued to run along the coast where there were few vehicles. However, at this moment, Sakayuji suddenly stopped, just waiting for the reaction of this reconnaissance machine. Sakayuji's perverted and sharp reconnaissance ability is something he can't match. The abnormality of the bird-shaped decoration in the animation was also noticed by him. What's wrong? Qin Ren said through Takahashi. Ah, nothing. Maybe I'm too tired. Yuji Sakai stared at a truck passing by on the road under the embankment and shook his head. Truck? Qin Ren couldn't ignore Yuji Sakai's actions. Any abnormal behavior of this humanoid radar can be a help to him. This is also one of the reasons why he didn't give up the original vest. Takahashi found a clue, and as the real Qin Ren, he immediately gave up the action of setting a trap near the repair point set by Kamsen and went directly to find the truck. The power of existence surged in his feet. Unlike the way he moved when he was still a fragile torch, Qin Ren's body swept through the sky at a very high speed under the enchanted strengthening of his feet, just like gliding in the sky, leaving a phantom. Soon, he found the truck. Mirror sand seeped into the truck. It looked like some ordinary goods. All kinds of small shops, convenience stores, and supermarkets needed goods, piled up in boxes. This is a truck for delivering to shops and convenience stores. Without any hesitation, Qin controlled the mirror sand to sweep over all the goods. Then an electrical appliance like a small alarm clock stopped Qin's action. Freedom Method. Chapter 632. Investigation. It was actually placed on something like this. Qin Ren controlled the mirror sand, reflecting the characteristics of Faragni's existence force. The smooth mirror sand swayed in a wide flame shape, wrapping the alarm clock. The freestyle hidden in the mechanical components inside the alarm clock was quickly penetrated by Qin Ren's mirror sand, recording without any interference. Qin Ren just used the mirror sand to record the freestyle. However, this freestyle is only a part, not all. From this situation, it seems that Dan Kaiyujayu chose to use other methods to cover up these goods. This car should be sent to convenience stores, supermarkets and shops, or department stores, or express delivery. After completing the record, Qin Ren left a few grains of mirror sand to adhere to the mechanical components inside the alarm clock, and then chose to go directly immediately. What needs to be done next is to quietly find enough items that hide the freestyle and make some modifications and adjustments. It would be best if all the freestyles can be found before the free method is activated. After all, he couldn't guarantee that the mad professor with the same name as Dan Talon, one of the 72 pillars of demons, hadn't hidden any strange freestyles in the remaining parts. Judging from the freestyles in this alarm clock, the mad professor was the type who liked to add mods constantly. In addition to the basic bottom-level freestyles that could be combined to form a large freestyle, there was also a separate freestyle in this alarm clock. He could add whatever he wanted, and who knew what strange freestyles this professor would install. Really casual. It's a pity that his situation didn't allow him to be so leisurely, otherwise he would want to be so casual. Shaking his head, Qin Ren snapped his fingers in an instant. The mirror sand creatures scattered throughout Misaki City moved one after another, moving towards nearby department stores, shops, convenience stores, and supermarkets. At the same time, in another place, Dumino the Red World Demon King, who was wearing a white robe and looked like a scientist and a laboratory worker, made a sharp cry like a strange bird and raised his right hand exaggeratedly, exploring and seeking. Dantlio. Under this somewhat weird and funny action, the light green flame swirls into a vortex, and with the sound of metal friction, the robot-like phosphorus appears next to the crazy professor. "Here I come, here, professor, what do you want to ask me?" The chubby robot phosphorus domino made a voice. "Have you set up the freestyle?" "It's set up." The expanded and distorted combined freestyle structure has been transported to various locations in Misaki City, through human logistics transportation. The Fire Mist Warrior will definitely not find it. The robot Phosphorus Domino responded with a respectful but somewhat funny mechanical voice. "Then Professor, when will the experiment begin?" "I will adjust the party cabinet before then." Domino's eyes, which were made up of a large and a small gear, looked at Dantlio. Hearing this, Dantlio suddenly stretched out his arms, and the mechanical hand stretched out, grabbed Domino's cheek cast from a gas barrel, and twisted it hard. "Domino, it hurts a lot, Professor." Phosphorus Domino kept shaking his two crudely made, angular mechanical hands because of the pain. "I've already said it, this is a triggered-free method. As long as a tuner tries to use a large tuning-free method to repair the distortion, the reminder will be triggered. As long as we open the free method here at that time, we can directly form a free method of space transmission channel at 2 locations. Dantlio let go of his hand, raised his right hand high, and made the somewhat funny gesture just now, shouting very seriously and loudly, "You should have adjusted the cabinet of the party before sending out the components." As he said that, he stretched out his other hand and was about to grab Domino. Although this hand looked like a flesh and blood hand, compared with the other mechanical arm, the destructive power seemed to be smaller in the eyes of ordinary people, but for the Red World Apostles, the appearance is basically just a decoration. The actual destructive power is the same for mechanical appearance and flesh and blood appearance. Domino did not doubt the destructive power of his master's flesh and blood arm. "I'll go right away, Professor," accompanied by a slightly funny mechanical sound. Domino turned around and ran away with the sound of metal collision. At Misaki City High School, Kazumi Yoshida was carrying her school bag and looking at the campus ahead with a slightly hesitant expression. For some reason, it was approaching the holiday, and the chances of meeting Yuji Sake, the boy she had a crush on, would decrease. She should be more proactive in stepping into the campus and meeting him. It should be like this. But now she was a little afraid to step into the campus. What she was afraid of was, she looked at the monocle in her hand. The 2 people she met while helping out at school on the weekend called themselves Fire Mist Warriors. They were tools given to her by the killer who killed the monster disciple that was an ogre. With this, she could confirm who was the torch left behind by the ogre. She used this to observe her parents and brother, and they were all normal. However, when she wanted to use this to observe Yuji Sake, the boy she had a crush on, she hesitated. Her eyes turned to the bag in her hand, which contained her own lunchbox and the lunchbox prepared for Yuji Sake. The Rai, who was supposed to like Ikayato, had changed his mind for some reason and fell in love with Sake, and the two became closer and closer. Obviously, she was the first one to come. Originally, it was just a secret crush, and she could have taken her time, but she had to step up and take the initiative to pursue Sakai. But now, she was afraid. She was afraid that the object of her love had died. She was afraid that the Sakayuji in her eyes was a human dregs who would not live for a week. She didn't want to accept the cruel fact that Sakayuji was dead, and she would never see him again, and even forget him. But she couldn't hesitate any longer. Yoshida Kazumi clenched the monocle in her hand. It had been several days, and the Firefog warrior, Kamsen, still needed to repair the city destroyed by the ogre, and she had to help as soon as possible. Yoshida Kazumi used this reason to convince herself as a reason to open the Schrodinger's poison box. Even if the other party had turned into a torch, She would give this lunch box to the other party and accompany him through the last part of the journey. At least, in the end, she was the one who accompanied the other party. Selectively forgetting whether she could accept this cruel fact, Yoshida Kazumi stepped into Misaki High School. In a corner of the campus, the mirror sand creature controlled by Qin Ren, a black cat, was looking at the girl. Maybe it can be used. Using the death of Takahashi to brainwash Yuji Sakai may not be enough. Chapter 633 Launch. So green. Amidst the comments of the high school girls, such as so cute and where did it come from, Qin Ren controlled the mirror sand black cat to avoid the touch of the high school girls and observed Yoshida Kazumi and Sakai Yuji. He didn't need to hide. Sakai Yuji and Kamsen knew that these mirror sand creatures were controlled by him. Sakai Yuji knew, and Shanna and Alistair naturally knew it too. However, just as Qin Ren was observing and preparing the freedom method against Professor Dantlio, something strange happened. The surroundings suddenly darkened as if it had suddenly fallen at night. The red light like the sunset suddenly rose and enveloped most of Misaki City. This situation also surprised Qin Ren. According to the freedom methods he recorded through the infiltration and analysis of various mirror sand creatures, those freedom methods should be triggered, and they will be triggered when they are tuned and start to repair the distortion. But Kamsen can't tune without an assistant? What's going on? However, at this moment, a possibility flashed through his mind. That crazy professor made a tuning method as an active trigger device. This is not a difficult guess, but he did not find this active trigger device, so he hid this guess. However, his initial idea was indeed correct. The professor, who was completely a mad scientist in the animation, could do anything. Unfortunately, his countermeasures against this method have not been completed. It seems that he can't get any benefits. After examining the completion of the method, Qin Ren moved to the center of the incident. Because of the appearance of the seal, Yuji Sakai and Shanna also took action immediately. However, Kazumi Yoshida, who was supposed to be motionless in the seal, was not stopped by the seal because he held the treasure given by Kamsen. Finding that the world around him became dim, Kazumi Yoshida, who was holding his glasses in front of his eyes and preparing to observe Yuji Sakai, was also flustered, and was discovered by Yuji Sakai. Yoshida, with his keen perception, he immediately realized that the monocle in Yoshida Kazumi's hand was a treasure. Treasure? Who gave it to Yoshida? Was it a disciple? Because of the appearance of Wilhelmina, the communication between Shanna and Sakai Yuji was blocked. Sakai Yuji had not learned about Kamsen's existence from Shanna, and although Shanna knew that Kamsen had come, she did not know that Kamsen's chosen assistant was Yoshida Kazumi. However, Sakai Yuji took the initiative to step forward, shouted, and entered the field of view of the monocle. His shouting also made Yoshida Kazumi turn her head. In her left eye, Sakai Yuji was still in human form, but the gaze of her right eye through the treasure caught the swaying flames. Margarine, who was sleeping soundly in Sato's house, woke up the moment Fengju appeared. Marcoses. Okay. Just by calling the name, Marcoses tacitly started the flying method, and Margarine immediately jumped on the back of the book, and flew out of Sato's house under the support of Marcoses. Kamsen, who was searching everywhere because of Qin Ren's words, looked at the suddenly opened Fengju. Although his face did not change drastically, his frown showed his seriousness. This is… Yes, that's right, Fengju, not the newcomer, nor the Tanarang Jiuo, nor the ravaged minions. Probably not the Dream Crown Belt. Behamert's voice sounded from the bracelet knot. It seems that he is right, there is indeed a trap, but it's too late. Kamsen, who looks like a teenager, said in the tone of vicissitudes of life, and the inconsistency between his appearance and tone was not noticed by anyone in this Fengju. Immediately, he put his hand on the thick metal stick on his back, pulled the white bandage wrapped around it, and jumped down from the roof. The Rai house. Because he replaced Hirai Enishi's identity, this residence naturally became Shanna's residence, and Wilhelmina also lived here. Sure enough, we should destroy that mistus as soon as possible. While cleaning the floor with a vacuum cleaner, Wilhelmina communicated with her contracted Demon King. I agree. The Red World Demon King Dream Crown responded briefly, Heaven and Earth Tribulation Fire, poor supervision. After 2 days of investigation, She finally understood the reason for Shanna's abnormal behavior during this period. It was caused by the Mistis. He also gave her an unpleasant name like Shanna. The 0-hour lost child cannot be taken by the masquerade, and our combat power cannot protect the 0-hour lost child. The best way is to let the 0-hour lost child move randomly. Just as the two were discussing the plan to destroy Sakayuji's Mistis tonight, the seal was launched. This is abnormal situation. Hearing the voice from the headband, Wilhelmina immediately put down the vacuum cleaner in her hand, trotted a few steps, and jumped out of the yard. So, in the center of the seal, like a bowl on the ground, in the center of the countless totem characters lingering in the sky, two figures emerged from the center of the vortex. The Red World Devil, wearing a white robe, probed Dantlio, posed in a strange posture and shouted, "The focus of this experiment is the freestyle." What is the operating principle of the free master? Why can the freestyle be operated as long as the means of copying are used? Why exactly? As long as you witness the operation process and record the operation process, you can imitate it even if it is not a personal characteristic? Why is it so convenient? And what is the principle, and what does it have to do with distortion? Dantlio laughed in a sharp voice like a strange bird. Domino, our experiment is destined to be great, including the exploration of the distortion phenomenon of this world. This is a far-reaching experiment. How exactly does the freestyle work? Yes, Professor, Phosphorus Domino naturally flattered. The great invention born from the exploration and research of this principle is also the subject of the trap. Hearing the word great invention, Dantlio's ears twitched slightly, and the smile on his face became more intense. But he pretended to be calm and nodded heavily, and continued, "Exciting. Excellent. I'm really looking forward to the results, Professor." Hearing Domino's voice, Dantlio shook his head, and the unique power of existence that could be materialized into a pair of glasses condensed into a pair of glasses and put them on his face. Next, grand appearance. The crystallization of my studies. The cabinet for the party. Along with the cry of a strange bird, the huge machine gradually condensed and turned into a huge machine like a train. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 634, Sword of Light. Physical. A strong vortex of light green flames shot out with the appearance of the old train. The flames condensed and then exploded. At the same time, Domino's voice rang out throughout the entire Misaki city. "Everyone, please pay attention. I am a great super genius, a seeker of truth, a rare inventor, a philosopher who practices personally, an increasingly sophisticated striver, a skilled manufacturer and constructor, the Red World Devil who also dabbles in cooking and sewing, a handsome man with an unshakable look under his eyes, a scholar without predecessors and successors, the phosphorus of exploring and studying Professor Dantlio, the crystallization of my studies, the excellent number 28, Gandart Domino." After a round of flattery and boasting about his own voice, the chubby Domino continued, "From now on, this city will become our experimental site. To avoid interfering with the installation project, all humans please leave immediately, otherwise I will eat you. Please be prepared." When the Qin people arrived, they saw the robot-like body of Phosphorus suddenly split in the middle. Then, countless parts that should not be able to be accommodated in its body emerged from its body. Various metal pipes and wires, accompanied by the splash of gears and various components, radiated outward like a spider web. Various parts were like a child's toy box turned over. With the pipes and wires, they quickly spread all over the surrounding area, attached to the streets and buildings, and formed strange rails. When the rails appeared, they began to erode and merge. On the street, people who were stuck in stagnation due to the blockade were knocked away or squeezed out by the tracks and parts. Is there such a plot? Qin Ren looked at the tracks with a slightly puzzled expression. If he remembered correctly, in the animation, Sandan Kyuji seemed to appear in an airship, The rails in front of him and the train that was coming along the rails in the distance were not the same as he remembered, but he didn't have time to care about those. With phosphorus, probably called domino, as the center, a large number of metal pipes and gear components randomly pieced together to form a deformed machine completely covered a building. With a strange pulsation, it seemed as if the entire building had come alive. Moreover, on this giant castle wrapped with metal components, metal tentacles extended out. It was like a giant mechanical octopus lying on the ground. Professor, the Firefog warriors have arrived. The plan to take the initiative and gain the upper hand has failed. Under the gaze of Qin Ren, the giant phosphorus that merged with the building made a sound. Qin Ren's eyes immediately turned to the object of its conversation. It was a ball of light green flame, which swayed and condensed into a human-shaped phantom, a tall and thin man in a loose white robe, wearing thick glasses, from messy long hair to the inside of the robe. His whole body was wrapped with something that looked like a wide belt, and on his thin neck, there were many items such as cameras, telescopes, notebooks, Catholic rosaries, and various strange items. Explore and seek, Dantlio. Qin Ren finally saw the Red World Demon King, whose name was taken from the mirror Duke Dodlin of the 72 Pillars of Demon Gods. However, it was a pity that although he wanted to have some friendly exchanges, the other party did not want to. Boom. With the roar, Phosphorus Domino waved its mechanical tentacles and bombarded Qin Ren. Are you in such a hurry? Looking at the tentacles swinging at him, Qin Ren couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Although the existence power of his thousands of people is not as good as that of the Red World Demon King, it is still no problem to fight ordinary disciples. He raised his right hand, and the mirror sand condensed into a dual disc with sharp edges on his right arm. Activate trap card. Attack incapacitated. With Qin Ren's voice, the mirror sand condensed into a card in his hand that was about the size of a playing card. On the card, there was a red and blue vortex. 3 streams of light were sucked into the vortex, forming a halo pattern in the center. When he showed the card pattern forward, the flowing mirror sand also gathered in front of him, forming a huge vortex, sucking Domino's mechanical tentacles and crushing them. Attack incapacity can invalidate the enemy's attack, explaining a joke that no one could understand. Qin Ren began to talk nonsense. Then, restore our health. The magnificent vortex formed by the mirror sand crushed Domino's mechanical tentacles, and then decomposed and absorbed them. These mechanical tentacles are actually produced by the materialization of the power of existence. It has a similar effect to his mirror sand. No, it can only materialize the power of existence. Although similar, it is not the same. Qin Ren's mirror sand is converted from the power fragments of the Duke of Mirrored Antalon as a converter, and can actually only create something called mirror sand. The recording and mapping capabilities of the power fragments that the mirror sand originally possessed, and the work of arranging and combining, are all controlled by Qin Ren. However, Dantlio's power of existence is different from his mirror sand. After decomposition, absorption, and rough analysis, Qin Ren came to this conclusion. Professor, what kind of free method is this? However, Domino did not recognize the pseudo-free method that Qin Ren made based on the UGIO card. This law of freedom that he had never seen before made Domino ask his master. However, Domino, don't bother me, you handle it yourself. Dantlio didn't have time to deal with it at this time. He was hammering something here and there. I want to hijack the law of freedom of the tuner. You will be the one holding back the fire mist warrior first. The moment the voice fell, the light green flame suddenly disappeared. Hey, Professor, the action of the master was completely unexpected to Domino, and he couldn't help but scream. However, this situation was neither good nor bad for Qin Ren, or it could be said to be both good and bad. The good thing was that he didn't need to face a Red World Demon King head-on. The bad thing was that he wanted to record the characteristics of Dantlio's existence force, and this phosphorus was probably not enough. But it didn't matter. Let's do it first. Activate the magic card, Light Sealing Sword. Qin Ren raised his right hand again, and the card condensed by mirror sand showed a scene of 3 lightsabers floating in the air. With a snap, he smashed the card onto the dual disc, which was also made of mirror sand. Countless mirror sands flowed out of his body and flew forward. As the card lit up, The mirror sands flowed and formed huge light swords in the sky. Then, they fell straight down. Boom boom boom. The sand swords condensed from the mirror sands hit the ground, nailing the mechanical tentacles to the ground. Sword of Sealing Light, Physical. Chapter 635. I have no fighting power. It might be difficult to control the Red World Demon King, but in theory, there is no problem controlling a phosphorus. However, after releasing the mirror sand and condensing the light sealing sword, he realized his mistake. He recalled that Domino, the phosphorus, was not an ordinary phosphorus. Moreover, there were humans in the department store, and there were batteries to use. I've never seen the free method before. But why can't I record it? Is the structure hidden? It seems that I really haven't seen the freestyle appear. Is it hidden? Accompanied by mechanical sounds, Domino, who occupied the department store and transformed into a mechanical octopus, appeared on the nailed tentacles. Then Domino Science Crystal 004, different from the resistance force expected at the beginning. The light green flame floated with the freestyle, lingering on the mechanical tentacles, and then directly broke the light sealing sword. Should I say it is worthy of being the professor's phosphorus? Qin Ren silently took back the shattered mirror sand. It was not shattered, but he took the initiative to release the sealing sword. Although he constructed the sand sword according to the amount of the power of existence he sensed, through the law of freedom, Domino exerted a destructive force that exceeded the power of existence. However, even if it could be destroyed, it would not be so easy, and the sand sword could still last for 4 or 5 seconds. It was directly shattered because Qin took the initiative to release it. The difference between phosphorus and disciple is not just the amount of power of existence. The key is that phosphorus is actually an extension of disciple, a part of disciple, and generally cannot use the freestyle. However, Domino is a special case. The sealing sword he set up was not just to limit Domino's attack. If you want to destroy Domino, just hit him directly. Just like the previous concept, the sealing sword collected a part of the power of existence. Although it can release the power of existence to construct the law of freedom by itself, the process of constructing and releasing the law of freedom is not concealed. It seems that Dantlio set up some special freedom to turn Domino into a treasure. In other words, Domino, the phosphorus, is both a phosphorus and a treasure. It is different from Mystis but quite similar. Although it is not a real treasure, Qin Ren is quite interested, because he can use the mirror sands to project the law of freedom, such as Tersra. But in the final analysis, it is all projected through the mirror sand, and if he does not maintain the mapping of the mirror sand will return to its original state. Although it is more convenient in terms of function, if he records this law of freedom, he can create more things. For example, copy a treasure hunter Faragni or Agent Tatilia or something. He does not need to be distracted to maintain it, and can act according to the set action mode. If it is his original body, the Qin Ren who is entangled with the demon god, it would be easy to do this. But now Qin Ren can't do it. But with this law of freedom, wow, thank you. Qin Ren raised his right hand, and the mirror sand gathered in his hand. The beautiful woman with the demon on the right and the angel on the left appeared on the card, like a living thing. The beautiful woman on the card held up her hands, and a pink heart appeared in her hands. Octopuses should like water more, right? Qin Ren, who was at ease, did not forget to show his real fighting style, and slapped the card on the dual disc. Shashasha, endless, smooth mirror sand surged out of his body, forming a huge wave. However, rather than sand, the purple-black gravel, anyone's intuitive perception would regard it as a liquid like water. The purple-black smooth mirror sand surged out and instantly swept Domino, who had transformed into a giant mechanical octopus. Hey, what kind of free method is this? Domino swallowed and absorbed the humans inside his body, or the building, one by one, and waved his tentacles again. The light green flames entangled and swayed on his body, and instantly turned into a huge flaming octopus. The light green flame tentacles kept waving and whipping the purple-black sand waves. However, this time, the situation like the light seal sword being shattered did not happen. The purple-black sand wave blocked the bombardment of the tentacles wrapped in flames with great strength. Don't resist. It's not good to waste time. It's my turn again. Draw a card. The surging mirror sand condensed into a card in his hand again. Sealing sword. However, it was not the light sealing sword, but, because of the light sealing sword, Qin Ren was still quite impressed by the card in the hands of the dragon suit that appeared in the first generation of Yu-Gi-Oh! After all, he had a card in his hand, Dark Sealing Sword. What is the effect? It seems to cover the monster card on the front, and then turn over the other cards? Forget it, it's all the same. Qin Ren, who didn't remember the effect very clearly, slapped the card on the dual disc. The next moment, in the dark sand wave, a part of the mirror sand gathered together to form a huge skull. Then, a black long sword shot out from the sand wave and nailed Domino's tentacles into the ground. Here we go again. Help me, Professor. Unlike last time, the mechanical tentacles were completely unable to destroy these black swords. Realizing that he could not resist, Domino immediately screamed and tried to call on his master to save him. However, at this moment, the surrounding black sand waves surged in and penetrated every gap in its mechanical body. Then, the mirror sand swayed and turned white. Qin Ren controlled the mirror sand, reflecting the characteristics of Faragni, penetrating and recording the free law on Domino and the characteristics of Dantlio's power of existence. At this time, within the perception range, other fire mist warriors finally arrived. Lost Guide, Marjolaine, who flew over on the giant book, shouted, "This smell, can it be that crazy professor?" Marcose's voice sounded from the giant book. "Yes, it's Dantankai-Ujiu. His phosphorus is really hard to deal with. It actually has the strength of a disciple. People like me who have no fighting ability can only control this phosphorus." Qin Ren lied without any unnaturalness. "Eulogy chanter, deal with Dantankai-Ujiu as soon as possible. You bastard are really weak." Marcose's voice emerged. "Stupid Marco. It's time to go." "Okay." With the shouts of the two, the ultramarine flames blazed and turned into a coat of flames, wrapping Marjolaine into a giant beast in the form of a wolf and bear, rushing towards the trains running on the tracks in all directions. Chapter 636, Stone Giant. The grand light green light circle, accompanied by the sound of explosion, rotated, bent, and swayed in the sky and on the ground. With the roar, the train-like machine left a series of free-flowing rings where it passed. The professor in a white robe sat in the driver's seat of the train and kept turning the joysticks. "Excellent." Looking at the self-operating screen, Dantlio, with a smug smile on his face, cried like a strange bird. But at this moment, the ultramarine flame attacked. "You, the foolish inventor king, are really hard to find. There is no breadth at all. Without the guidance of that bastard, I really can't feel your position." Marjolaine, wearing an ultramarine flame coat and transformed into a wolf bear-like giant beast, spoke after Marcose's. The ultramarine flame bombs shot like machine guns one after another. "Oh oh 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 oh, attack, attack." Dantlio's movements were extremely flustered, but surprisingly he turned several joysticks without any mistakes. At the moment of turning, the huge machine on the train suddenly deformed, and several mechanical arms extended from the first carriage of the train. At the same time, circles of freestyle rings appeared at the front of the mechanical arms. Boom boom boom. When the ultramarine flame bombs came, the mechanical arms punched at high speed. "Ola ola 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 ola." Qin Ren, who was infiltrating and analyzing Domino's free method, dubbed leisurely. However, Dantlio didn't know what JoJo was, but he still posed, "The minions of Ravage." "Why? You people only like the symptomatic treatment in front of you? This won't work." Ignoring the discovery of the truth and blindly taking short-term measures is unreasonable, unpleasant, and dishonest. "Why are you talking so much nonsense?" Marjolaine had no intention of talking to him. "If you don't understand, then don't understand. I'll understand after I kill you all." Marcoses shouted excitedly, with a strong fighting spirit. "Most of the disciples who came to this world are people who live as they please and do whatever they want and are loyal to their own desires and beliefs. This extreme form of existence contrasts with the upright and rigorous personality of some Red World demon kings who signed contracts with humans to become fire mist warriors." Although Marcoses is a special case, in fact, it is almost the same, and he also obeys the desire of fighting. And the professor, that is, Explorer Dantlio, is immersed in extremely strange desires and beliefs. He has always been ridiculed as a super weirdo and has become famous as the Red World Demon King. In the eyes of others, Marcoses is a weird battle maniac, but in the eyes of Marcoses, Dantlio is even weirder. In order to conduct research and experiments on the ecology of both the Red World and this world, he is willing to gamble his own existence and do whatever it takes. For the Fire Mist Warrior, the main reason why he has become a major obstacle is that he cannot judge his code of conduct. The form and object of his desires constantly change. He sometimes carelessly crosses or even tramples on the actions of ordinary apostles. Only he himself understands the meaning and significance of it. According to the words of the Fire Mist Warriors who had communicated with Dantlio before, sometimes even Dantlio himself does not understand what he said. Most of the Fire Mist Warriors signed a contract with the Red World Demon King because they had a grudge against their disciples. However, it should have been all, for the sake of experiments. Dantlio forced the Demon King and the disciples to make a contract with humans, creating a group of Fire Mist Warriors who had no reason to fight and even confronted the Fire Mist Warriors. His experimental subjects are not limited to the law of freedom in the style of freedom, from treasures to the structure of the world, occasionally even involving humans, apostles, and Fire Mist Warriors. The objects change again and again with his inconsistent and capricious mood. Rather than communicate, Marcoses only wanted to kill him. With his excited roar and Marjolin's limerick, the blue fire beast rushed out from the free law circle in front of him and bit the mechanical arms. It seems that Marjolin doesn't know that Tanden Kyujiu has joined the masquerade. Qin Ren thought leisurely while watching the fight between the two. At this time, another person arrived, the dress-up rider, Kamsen. Looking at the brown-skinned boy, Qin Ren speeded up his movements again. Tanden Kyujiu can't die yet. It seems that it is indeed the professor. He can hijack the tuning free law we set up before I can react. The only ones who can turn the tuning base point into a distorted base point are the spiral organ and him. The voice of Beheimer came from Kamsen's bracelet. Yeah. Kamsen nodded lightly. He remembered that Dantlio seemed to have been hired by a Red World Demon King to participate in his strange plan. Later, because he wanted to do other experiments, he turned traitor and annihilated the Demon King. No, he should not be called a traitor. He did not surrender to the Fire Mist Warrior, although he had a period of friendship with the Fire Mist Warrior. But from now on, he was entrusted to strengthen the Fire Mist Warrior's noble phantasm just for experiments. Later, it was heard that he also used his disciples as experimental subjects and used the method of strengthening the noble phantasm to strengthen the disciples in the same way, resulting in serious damage to both sides. If today's incident was his doing, then his goals were too broad and therefore unpredictable. It is useless for this crazy scientist who experiments for the sake of experimenting to try to understand the idea that he himself may not know why. Judging from the act of hijacking the law of freedom and causing distortion, it is definitely not explained by the simple purpose of eating humans. It is enough to understand that this action is harmful to the world. Drive, Kamsen said, stretching his left hand to his chest. With a slight sound, a ball of brown flame ignited in his palm, forming the freestyle, Getarshu's heart chamber. Dress up. With a rumble, the ground cracked, and countless gravels gathered around him, forming a cavity like a heart. Getarshu's blood seal. Activate. As the two people exchanged their voices, the freestyle spread out from the heart chamber in an instant, and brown flames gushed out. At the same time, Kamsen himself emerged from the control room Getarshu's heart chamber that was transformed by brown flames, and stretched out his treasure, the huge mechast. Freestyle, Getarshu's blood vessel formation. Then, flames like a coarse net spurted out from all the freestyles. These blood vessels connecting rocks to rocks were connected by flow, and they became stronger and tightened rapidly as the vibrations became stronger. Kamsen continued. Expand. The blood vessels of fire bonded together one by one. As the blood vessels became thicker, the strength of the connection also increased greatly, giving the connected rocks stronger strength and gradually forming a stable polymer. Finally, boom! With a loud bang, the stone giant rose from the ground. Chapter 637 Party Cabinet. Kamsen transformed into a stone giant, and his huge body instantly attracted everyone's attention. "I really miss it." Qin Ren looked at the stone giant rising from the ground and sighed. In the worlds he just traveled through, he liked the posture of transforming into a giant, the sand giant with the image of Obelisk's giant soldier. Speaking of which, Kamsen has a deep relationship with Obelisk. No, it should be said that it has a deep relationship with Egyptian mythology. Fist of Aten. The totem of the law of freedom unfolded with the ring, and the stone giant incarnated by Kamsen raised his left hand, boom, with the lingering brown flames. The half of the left hand from the elbow to the front end was launched like a cannonball, but it did not hit Dantlio, but to the other side, towards the rails shot out by Domino, and towards the totem of the law of freedom that maintained those rails. With a loud rumble, the giant's hand smashed the rails with splashing brown flames. With a crackling sound, the flames spread and shattered a stretch of rails. Moreover, the flames continued to spread, as if they were going to burn all the connected rails. Seeing this, Dantlio screamed in shock, "Oh my god, what did you do?" If it was an attack on the party cabinet itself, he was confident that he could withstand the giant's fist. However, the opponent did not attack the party cabinet, a train that he had prepared a lot of defenses for and set up a variety of researched free methods, but instead targeted the running rails. He did not do anything to defend these rails. Once they were destroyed, he would become powerless. No way, I had expected this to happen. After the inexplicable rotation, Dantlio screamed like a strange bird and pulled several of the more than 50 joysticks in the cab of the huge train. Boom boom. The change accompanied by the loud noise made Qin Ren turn his eyes. When it was about to enter the track surrounded by the brown flames cast by Kamsen, mechanical arms suddenly extended from both sides of the huge train, pierced into the ground, and slowed down by handbrake. No, not slowing down, but lifting the body of the car, like a grasshopper. The huge train suddenly jumped into the sky. In the parabolic trajectory, Dantlio jumped up in a posture that he thought was gorgeous and heroic. "Exciting, excellent. It's not over yet." Dantlio in the cab posed in a pose that was actually not gorgeous and redundant, and pulled the joystick above his head. The carriages suddenly changed shape at this moment. The mechanical arms that had just stretched out formed a skeleton, allowing the carriages to be combined and close together. Then, the totem of the law of freedom spread with the ring, and the light green flame formed a huge shuttle-shaped cavity above. The train that was originally running on the rails suddenly turned into a huge airship. Security equipment. I learned the crystal number 2648-9. After a completely ungrammatical pause and lingering sound, Dantlio screamed and pulled another joystick. The next moment, the wheels under the huge airship, where the base of the train was originally, suddenly lit up with a light green light. Seeing the dense light green, Qin Ren immediately dodged and hid behind Domino, who was bound and imprisoned with mirror sand. The next moment, like raindrops, countless light green fire rains fell from the sky, focusing on him. Kamsen and Majonglin, two little black men, sat in the sun. One was sunburned to death, and only one was left. The unaesthetic limerick came out of Marjolin's mouth, causing the ring of the impromptu massacre poem to spread, forming a huge ultramarine shield in front of her. The blood mark of Katarxiu. Kamsen's voice came from the stone giant, and he pulled the huge metal pillar in his right hand hard, and the brown flames like blood lifted up huge rocks from the ground and blocked them in front of him. Boom boom boom. Countless fire rains hit the defenses of the three people, but they did not have the powerful attack power expected. This seemingly powerful and destructive continuous fire rain could not cause much damage at all. I've been fooled, ha ha ha. My confused sheep Marjolin duo, it's not a volcanic eruption but train. Stupid Marco, it's time to attack. Marjolin immediately lifted the defensive freedom method and was about to recite a few more limericks to attack Dantlio in the sky. But it's running really fast. Kamsen moved the huge rock wall in front of him and made a faint sound. After the attack just now, Dandankiujiu had already flown a long distance on the huge airship. It was different from the slow speed that an airship should have. But at this moment, Dandankiujiu, suppression of decision. Almost at the same time, in the emotionless and indifferent voices, a white javelin attacked from the upper side and pierced through the airbag of the huge airship. Another one. Because he successfully attracted attention, Dantlio, who thought he could successfully escape, screamed and looked at the attacking object. Those white javelins were surprisingly tied up with long pieces of bandage-like cloth. Although they did not have any destructive properties, the solidity was enough to condense into destructiveness. The person who appeared was 10,000 Hands Wilhelmina. "Come on, party cabinet. Try a little harder." Dantlio, who met the fourth fire mist warrior, moved the joysticks in an exaggerated and panic manner, and circles appeared on the airship made of train iron sheets, the crystal of my learning. However, when the circle was about to form, a large sword wrapped in blazing red flames fell from the sky. Dantlio looked to the side and couldn't help but scream again. A sharp blade pierced in from the side of the airship. Then, with a crackling sound, blazing red flames gushed out from the tip of the blade and shot towards him. Chapter 638 Escape? Wow! Qin Ren couldn't help but exclaimed as he watched the airship explode in the sky. At this moment, accompanied by a loud bang, the giant beast in the form of a wolf bear landed beside Qin Ren. The ultramarine flames dissipated, and Margarine, who had taken off her flame coat, regained her human form and appeared beside Qin Ren. "It's probably time to repel that crazy professor." As she spoke, she hung the giant book on her shoulder and took out a bookmark. "Repel? Why do you say that? Didn't you destroy him?" Qin Ren asked curiously, although he was not surprised by this result. That confused king of inventions often conducts all kinds of weird experiments without distinguishing between enemies and friends. He has more enemies than the disciples you have seen, and is particularly good at running away in the face of battle. Marcose's voice was wrapped in habitual sarcasm. It can't be denied that he is good at running away. That phosphorus also escaped from my free method. Qin Ren's eyes swept to the prison formed by the mirror sand next to him. There was a small hole on the mirror sand cage that wrapped the huge mechanical octopus. "You can't even kill phosphorus. You are so useless." Margarine, who had been fooled by Qin Ren, sneered. Qin Ren didn't care. Phosphorus did run away, but it was not certain whether he ran away on his own or was let go. "I can't help it. The tuning of the freestyle has been hijacked. I have to focus on this." Qin Ren shrugged his shoulders. "What?" Margarine and Marcos spoke at the same time. "In this building, or in the railroad tracks extending from this building, there is a reversal mechanism that can turn the use of the free law into the opposite." Qin Ren has almost mastered the free law after recording and studying the free law for several months. Looking at the huge railroad tracks and buildings wrapped in his mirror sand, he said, "Miss Margarine, you should know the reversal seal, right?" "Huh? How can you not know? Isn't it?" Margarine paused after subconsciously retorting, as if she also realized something. Although she was best at various free methods used in combat, such as interference, restraint, tracking, attack, defense and the like, she was not proficient in all of them. But there was no doubt that reversing the seal was one of the types she was proficient in. Seeing her expression, Qin Ren chuckled. Reverse seal and other self-sufficiency methods are usually used to resist the opponent's attack. The scale of the self-sufficiency method is usually not very large, but, hey, it can't be. Margarine, who had already understood Qin Ren's meaning, glanced around at Marcos's surprise. That crazy professor used the self-sufficiency method of reverse seal on the entire city. Yes, that's right. If it is under normal circumstances, it can't be done on such a large scale, and it is launched against the tuning. Qin Ren came to the railroad, squatted down, stretched out his hand and knocked on the railroad. Reverse seal. If it is used for the tuning self-sufficiency method, his purpose should be to expand the distortion to the maximum limit. So, he must arrange it. But who said that his arrangement should be done on the spot? The uncoordinated small alarm clocks and small appliances that Yuji Sakai felt were the nodes arranged in advance by Dantlio. Although these rails seem to have no rules, they actually connect every node. If he hadn't marked it with mirror sand before, he would probably sigh that the other party was quite fast. Damn, did that madman actually attack Misaki City in advance? Margarine gritted her teeth, but the unexpected answer didn't surprise her. After all, that guy could do anything. With this scale, it is definitely possible to expand the distortion to a scale larger than the entire city. If successful, It will completely destroy the existence of the entire Misaki city. Marjolaine has already understood the scale of Tandanki Ujiu's plan. The self-sufficiency law in this building is an unfinished product, but the overall structure is connected to the extended railroad tracks. Qin Ren looked at the party cabinet, the wreckage of the huge machine that turned from a train into an airship. Through the vision of the mirror sand creature, the wreckage fell less than a kilometer away from the building. It's really a carefully designed self-sufficiency law. As long as the wreckage arrives, the self-sufficiency law will be activated immediately. Qin Ren shrugged his shoulders and made a final explanation. When he arrives, it will cause destruction, and the mastermind who set up this freestyle will also be affected. Marjolaine looked at the railroad tracks. Her face was quite ugly. This guy is really unreasonable. There must be a way to escape, just like what he is doing now. Marcos continued. Listening to the conversation between the two, Qin Ren had no intention of continuing the conversation. Since he understood, he didn't need to explain it again. Now, get some soup to drink. Mirror sand surging like water appeared under Qin Ren's feet, carrying him to the other side of the railroad tracks. At the same time, outside Misaki City, in a huge pit used to store the cabinet for the party, a light green flame suddenly swirled. Aha! It was a critical moment. Dantlio, who was almost killed, had no expression of frustration or hatred at all, including his white robe. His whole body was charred black, and his hair was a big afro. Which link went wrong? Without immediately tidying up his appearance, Dantlio thought about the reason why the plan failed. At this moment, a ball rolled over. Professor, hearing the voice, Dantlio turned his head to look. It was Domino with only the head left. When it came to Dantlio's side, the light green flame on Dantlio's arm condensed into a mechanical hand. With the transformed mechanical hand, he mercilessly twisted the face of the assistant with only the head left. Domino, where have you been? You can't do the experiment if you are afraid of death. But Professor, I was caught. And those are Unbreakable Peak, Dream Crown, Ravage Claws and Heavenly Fire. They are either famous battle maniacs or killers. They are all a group of monsters. Domino, with only the head left, tried to quibble. It didn't encounter other Firefog warriors at all, but was just locked up by a Firefog warrior using the free method. Hearing its words, Dantlio also let go. He pulled out a thick, notebook-like noble phantasm from a pile of tools tied with ropes hanging from the inside of his white robe, and kept flipping through it. Then prepare for the next experiment. Based on the experience this time, I will create the crystallization of my learning number 30,145, Super Invincible Space Teleporter. After saying the name of a new noble phantasm with an ungrammatical pause, Dantlio posed. Yes, Professor, Domino echoed. However, neither of them noticed that inside the remaining head of Domino, a ball of light green fine sand was slowly surging. Chapter 639 Induction. Quiet and peaceful. More than half a month had passed since Dantlio's attack. Kamsen also completed the tuning with the help of Yoshida Kazumi, stabilizing Misaki City, which was on the verge of collapse. As a tuner, Kamsen would not stay in one place for too long. After staying for 2 days and making sure that there were no more problems, he set off for the next twisted place he learned from the outside world and left Misaki City. Then Shanna and Yuji Sakai continued to live separately. Are you going to destroy me after all? Shanna too. He still couldn't believe that Shanna liked him. People often indulge themselves too much, and think that girls like them when they treat him well. Yuji didn't have such a good self-awareness, although he, as a man, also had some delusions. Although he would be very happy in that case, although he also longed for it. But in fact, the other party was just a temporary comrade in arms and temporary assistant for the work of the Fire Mist Warrior, just like Yoshida to Mr. Kamsen. No, it's not, Shanna said to him. It's just a mistus. Yuji Sakai sighed, looking a little melancholy. Before, Miss Carmel also said that in order to prevent the masquerade from getting the lost child of Zero Time, he had to be destroyed and the lost child of Zero Time was transferred. 10,000 hands may think so, and flame hair burning eyes may also think so, but Shanna should not. Sitting in the courtyard of the Sakai family, Qin Ren sighed in his heart. I didn't expect that there would be a day when he would help people pimp and negotiate love, But in order to induce Yuji Sakai to become the substitute of the ritual snake and carry out the creation plan, he also needs to do this. Because of his intervention, the plot has changed more or less, and Yuji Sakai's mental journey has also changed. He cannot guarantee that Yuji Sakai will still have the same idea as in the original plot. Then he will induce and instill ideas into Yuji Sakai to brainwash him. If Shanna is an ordinary girl, she may choose to protect you directly, but she is also a fire mist warrior. Besides that, this is actually only part of the reason. Another reason is that Shanna doesn't understand her feelings and doesn't know that this is the so-called love. In addition, the troublesome and frank character of Tsundere caused trouble. In fact, he wanted to complain about this setting. No matter how innocent she is, she won't be so ignorant that she doesn't know what feelings are. Not to mention that the setting is that the intervention can obtain the memories of the original owner. Every time the fire mist warrior arrives at a place, he will choose a suitable torch to intervene and investigate, and related memories such as feelings are naturally indispensable. But Shanna, portrayed in the animation, is like an emotional idiot, which is completely inconsistent with the setting of extremely strong learning ability. I don't know if it was adapted into an animation. Many plots of the original novels will be changed in comics and animations. He has not read the original novel and doesn't know what the image of Shanna in the original novel is. Fire Mist Warrior. Hearing Qin Ren's words, Sakai Yuji touched his chest. In his sight and perception, there was a burning flame in his chest. Am I a torch in the eyes of the fire mist warrior? Sakai Yuji raised his head and looked at Qin Ren. Yes, in our world, in our eyes, you are just a container containing a treasure, and you will soon disappear, and the treasure will be transferred as your torch disappears. With a good appearance, Qin Ren used words to induce the other party. It's just that the treasure in your container is special, which allows you to continue to exist. If it is an ordinary container, the time we spend with you will basically not exceed a week. The fate of the Fire Mist Warrior is to constantly attack disciples, and in the fate of his companions being killed by disciples or killing disciples, he will end his life as a tool by being killed by a disciple in the end. Tool. The young man in front of him, who looked only a few years older than him, was silent for a moment because of what the Fire Mist Warrior said. After a long time, he spoke again. Are you like this too? Of course, I signed a contract with Bakura because I wanted revenge at first, and exchanged everything for power, but I have already taken revenge and killed that disciple. Qin Ren fabricated his own experience without blushing. After that, I continued to act as a Fire Mist Warrior, but I kept wondering, when will it end? Maybe there will never be an end. Watching humans being devoured by disciples, watching the Fire Mist Warriors destroy disciples, and then the Fire Mist Warriors were destroyed again. Family, friends, companions, all familiar people will disappear unknowingly. Even as a Fire Mist Warrior, they cannot always protect them. As long as they leave their sight, they may be devoured by disciples and completely disappear in people's memories. After fabricating his experience, Qin Ren began to brainwash Yuji Sakai with his family and friends, guiding him towards a way to solve all problems at once. In the original plot, he remembered that Yuji Sakai cooperated with the Snake of Ritual because he felt that he could not protect his family, friends and acquaintances around him, and at the same time he did not want Shanna to live as a tool to kill disciples. For this reason, he chose to become the substitute of the sacrificial snake. At this time, he couldn't help but sigh in his heart. If he was still a demon god, it would be so easy to brainwash and directly implant memories. Why would it be so troublesome? As he said, he lay on the edge of the Sakai family's yard, and said with emotion, if there is a way to drive all the disciples back to the Red World at once. As he said, he smiled at Sakai Yuji who was looking at him. This way, I can relax, and then I can find a place to live in seclusion and do what I want to do. I don't have to participate in such dangerous battles, and no one, no companions and acquaintances will be swallowed by the disciples. For Sakai Yuji's good character, words like companions and acquaintances are more lethal, and Sakai Yuji also fell into a confused silence. It seems that the seeds of thought have been planted thoroughly. No, it's not called a seed, it's at least called a sapling. Looking at Yuji Sakai's expression, Qin Ren smiled in his heart, but said on his face, It's useless to talk to you. You are just a person who was killed by his disciple. Just think of me as complaining, just like the incompetent complaints of people who enter the company. But you don't need to worry. I am on your side. If you encounter irresistible danger, I will take you away from here. I will not choose to sacrifice you, but I can only take you away. My power is limited, and I can't take too many people away. In the end, Qin Ren did not forget to add a brainwashing injection made of family and friends. Chapter 640 Xinglai Palace. In the sky somewhere, a small island floating in the sky is surrounded by a ring of free law. It cannot be observed from the outside, but the starry sky dome can be seen from the inside. Treasure. Xinglai Palace, the headquarters of the masquerade, the base of the largest organization of the Red World Apostles. In the center of Xinglai Palace, there is a medieval castle, and the huge stone door is slowly closing. As this dense and heavy sound rang out, among the few people who stepped into the castle surrounded by the phosphorus maids, standing in the front was a charming woman in a tight dress. With an elegant pace, she walked on the ground that was like a pitch-black crystal and full of stars. The woman wore an eye patch on her right eye. But even so, others can see her two eyes, because she has another eye on her forehead. As she took a step, the thin chains wrapped around her shoulders and arms swayed and jingled. How about it, Professor? Are you interested? Join our plan. The woman's voice rang through the curtain-like darkness between the two columns on both sides of the castle hall. Walking forward in the center of the hall where the ceiling and walls could not be seen, and walking behind her, was a man in a white robe. It was Dantlio. His phosphorus, the domino with only the head left, had now fully recovered. The robot phosphorus, which did not match the style of the background era, followed Dantlio with big strides. I don't look back on the past, love. The voice that completely violated the grammatical pause habit came from Dantlio's mouth. Although his expression was helpless, his tone was uninterested. The woman did not refute his answer. Although the professor acted quite strangely, most of his action patterns were still under her control. In a simple summary, it was to devote everything to research, experimentation, and invention. Therefore, it is not difficult to understand that there is no so-called nostalgia. However, it is precisely because of this eccentric personality that he will definitely join in as long as there is something that can interest him. For example, about the lost child of 0 hour, the woman made a sound. Hearing this word, the light green glasses under the thick glasses suddenly shone with a sharp light. Dantlio, who was wearing a white coat that reached the ground and had an unusually slender body, suddenly walked much lighter. Have you found the lost child of 0 hour? With his hands waving like dead branches, he raised his glasses and came directly to the woman's face. Facing Dantlio, who was so close, the woman did not get angry, but just continued to walk forward. Professor, Lord Bellepiello said so. Domino's behavior of interrupting was just halfway interrupted by Dantlio, who was still walking forward, but his upper body turned around. The light green fire of existence condensed into a mechanical hand and pinched its face. Domino. But just as he was about to reprimand his phosphorus assistant, a voice suddenly sounded from the opposite side of the passage, from the gate at the end of the silver sand corridor. Welcome back, Mr. Bellepiello. The Star Palace has completed the palace bridge and returned to the track of the scheduled parade. The voice was respectful. The woman was one of the 3 pillars of the masquerade leader, Bellepiello, the judge of the reverse. Another person with the same status as Hecate of the top seat and Thousand Changes Zudinen. Bellepiello just nodded in response, and seemed to be a little disdainful. It was after her response that the wonderful scenery in the silver sand corridor that looked like the Milky Way suddenly faded. A red world apostle with a classical demon appearance with bat wings and a thin tail appeared in the eyes of the 3 people. As the man raised his head, the pointed ears and goat horns extending from his black hair were revealed. However, apart from his demon image, his face was quite ordinary. When he saw the 2 people beside Bellepiello, he showed a surprised expression. Dan Kayu Jayu Lord. Long time no see. Dantlio, with his lower body facing forward and his upper body facing backward, only turned his head back and responded to the other party in an extremely strange posture. Lan T Lord, long time no see. Domino, whose head was twisted by Dantlio, also greeted the other party. Lantifk, although humble in attitude, is the adjutant of Belipiel, the judge of the reverse reason, and a powerful demon king responsible for the defense and management of Xingli Palace. She ignored Lanti and Dan Kaiyujayu's meaningless conversation, and walked straight into the main door of the palace. In the main door of the palace, there is a huge boiler that looks like a danding. At this moment, a treasure that looks like a zen stick and a treasure that looks like an iron rod are inserted on it. Belipiel walked to the stove, took off the thin chains wrapped around her shoulders, and let the chains flow to the stove, wrapping around it in circles. She squinted her eyes. Originally, there should be a powerful Red World Demon King here, but now, the other party is not here. Bad Blade, Shabrok. At the same time, in Misaki City, Qin Ren was looking at the maid in front of him with a smile. Miss Carmel, 10,000 hands, I will never let you destroy Sakai. Lost Guide, you should know that the best way is to destroy Mistis and let the lost children of 0 Hour move. The two parties under the pressure of the sword drawing were Qin Ren and Wilhelmina. Looking at the bandages wrapped around the other's hands, Qin Ren just gently waved the mirror sand odachi in his hand, which was formed by fine mirror sand-like liquid. So I also hate the fire mist warrior, calling him Mistis and Torch all the time. It's not because Qin Ren himself is now a clone, and because he is a clone, he resonates with others. This is a meaningless reason, but it is indeed a Mistis, a torch. The definition is correct. The voices of Wilhelmina and the dream-crowned belt sounded. Qin Ren unwaveringly stood in front of Yuji Sakai and continued to make up his experience. Yes, it's just a torch, just like you used my family as energy for repair, which is just an ordinary act. His words made Wilhelmina, Shanna, who was standing behind her with an undecided look, and Yuji Sakai were all stunned. I'm sorry, whether you have experienced a lot and are numb or you really think of the torch as a buffer prop, but in my eyes, the torch is no different from the original person. The memory is the same, the personality is the same, that is a person. He carried the large sword made by Free Method in his hand on his shoulder and lied without blushing, I have a good chat with this guy. If you want to destroy him, just beat me first. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 641, Some Nonsense Debates. Although it is not certain that Wilhelmina will not take action, there is no doubt that Shanna will definitely not take action. If Wilhelmina really takes action, she should be able to stop it in time before Sakayuji is destroyed. For example, the smart operation of blocking the knife that appears in the animation. As for Qin Ren's crazy actions of brushing the favorability and instilling ideas, Wilhelmina and other Fire Mist warriors or the Demon Kings they contracted did not realize it, but really believed what he said and thought he had such a past. But this is a must. Even in the face of such a Qin Ren, Wilhelmina said in a light tone, not only is there an irresistible masquerade, but there is also another Demon King. Under the gaze of everyone, she continued, due to some conditions and reasons, even in the outside world, only a very few people know about it. Qin Ren did not interrupt and listened quietly. In the past few years, I have been specializing in dealing with a matter related to an extremely dangerous Demon King who reappeared after 100 years. I came to Misaki City, and now there are still a few acquaintances who are handling this matter on my behalf. Could it be? Alistair's heavy voice sounded, making Shanna feel something was wrong, and the name that came out of Wilhelmina's mouth confirmed her feeling. The agreed to. The agreed to? Qin Ren also remembered the Demon King corresponding to this name. Kai Piaoflace? He turned his head to look at Yuji Sake, and explained to the other party's puzzled expression, Kai Piaoflace is the creator of the Zero Time Lost. The Zero Time Lost is also a treasure she created in order to let her lover, who is a human, accompany her forever, and because of the existence of this treasure, Kai Piaoflace does not need to seize the existence of humans to maintain her activities in the world, and therefore stands on the side of humans. The zero time lost on you is a relic of her husband. She seems to be searching for the zero time lost all over the world. Hearing Qin Ren's explanation, Yuji Sakai couldn't help but remain silent. With his good character, after knowing this story, he wanted to return the zero time lost, but at the same time, he didn't want to die. He knew that he could continue to exist because of the zero time lost. If he handed over the zero time lost, he would die. He didn't want to die. In order to thwart the intentions of the Demon King and the Masquerade, destruction is the best way. Wilhelmina also spoke up. Actually, I have a question for a long time. 10,000 skillful hands and dream crown and belt. Can you answer it for me? Qin Ren stopped when he saw that things were going well and did not let the situation continue. He turned to ask Wilhelmina. Excuse me. Brief inquiry. Wilhelmina and Dream Crown and Belt responded in tacit agreement without affecting each other. According to my investigation, you should have been traveling with the two people you agreed to for a while. In other words, you are friends? Then why did you destroy the 0-hour lost child? Qin Ren turned his spearhead to Wilhelmina to divert everyone's attention. It's not destruction, the Dream Crown Tiamat spoke, and Wilhelmina also met Qin Ren's gaze head on. Yes. This is not an innocent malice. It's not to destroy the 0-hour lost child, but to make the 0-hour lost child move randomly. Wilhelmina responded, this treasure has the abnormal property of interfering with time phenomena, but its effect is only manifested in restoring the power of existence every day, which is very strange. Dangerous fire. The masquerade appeared here, and it is likely related to the 0-hour lost child. Destroying Mistis and making the 0-hour mystery randomly move to another torch wandering in the world can make it disappear from the eyes of those who want to get it for a long time. It is naturally much safer than waiting for the enemy to attack without any intelligence and preparation against the enemy. Even Qin Ren thought it was a very reasonable method. No matter who it was, no one could refute the rationality of this method. However, this method ignored the will of one person. Yuji Sakai. Do you feel the powerlessness of being manipulated by others? Qin Ren looked at Yuji Sakai, hiding such a whisper. And Yuji Sakai did feel it. Is this the case when a prisoner is waiting for the verdict in the court? Yuji Sakai clenched his fists and said to himself, but what did he do wrong? Is he a prisoner? He didn't remember that he had committed any heinous crimes that required the death penalty. If only he had a strong power. The thoughts that made him feel ashamed when reading light novels and comics seemed quite meaningful at this moment. Then, in this context where everyone seemed to be convinced, Qin Ren spoke up again to break the silence. I have another question. Excuse me. Wilhelmina repeated this response again. Why did the lost child of 0-hour move to the city where the glass altar of the sacrificial snake is located? Is it a coincidence? Glass altar? Explain in detail. The two spoke again. Qin Ren turned his gaze to Marjorie next to him, and asked others to turn their gazes to her as well. Oh, I'll do this. Marjolin, who was watching the show, felt the gazes of the crowd and took a step closer to the people who were talking. Among the treasures owned by Hunter Faragni, there is the glass altar of the sacrificial snake, which is now placed in the old Eda department store. Tanarang Jiuo, deliberately concealing it? The two asked Alistair. This, I'm not sure if it's a coincidence. Tanarang Jiuo was a little embarrassed. He couldn't say that he forgot to notify them. The relationship between the masquerade and the sacrificial snake is naturally needless to say. Thousand Changes Zudinen also appeared here. I think the masquerade is searching for the lost child at 0-hour with all its strength, and is carrying out plans related to the lost child at 0-hour. Once the lost child at 0-hour is transferred, we will lose the initiative. Qin Ren made up a random reason. If that's the case, then I think it's better to try to get the lost child at 0-hour to transfer and extend the search time, Wilhelmina said, so that the outside world can get enough time to react. The reason is far-fetched. Dream Crown and Belt also have the same opinion. No, I think the masquerade can easily find the lost child of 0-hour, and the transfer will not have any effect at all. The lost child of 0-hour has taboos on him, and they may be the taboos left by Dandan Kyujayu. I doubt that Dandan Kyujayu can track the location of the lost child of 0-hour. Qin Ren was talking nonsense again. Chapter 642 Masquerade Ball is coming. In the end, Qin Ren's nonsense worked. The reason that destroying SYNOPSIS and letting the 0-hour lost child out of sight might be more dangerous convinced everyone. Although Qin Ren could see that the reason why Wilhelmina wanted to destroy Yuji Sakai was not because of the masquerade, but because the cabbage in her garden was pushed by the pig. No, should it be said that the cabbage was pushed by the pig? Wilhelmina wanted to destroy Yuji Sakai, the SYNOPSIS, partly because of this, should I say, using public power for personal gain? As for whether there was any psychological burden, it was just a torch. Each fire mist warrior used the power of existence to repair the damage, and how many torches did they use? There was no psychological burden at all. For a period of time afterwards, nothing happened. Shanna gradually resumed the training of Yuji Sakai, and Wilhelmina also participated. Since destroying Yuji Sakai and letting the 0-hour lost child move might be more dangerous, the only way was to ask for help from the outside world and make it difficult for the 0-hour lost child's container to be plundered. As for the method, there was no problem. As a companion of the Promised Two, Wilhelmina knew that the original owner John was a powerful free master. In order to improve their strength, Wilhelmina persuaded Qin Ren and Majonglin to teach Yuji Sakai the free method. However, unlike Qin Ren, a former demon god, although Yuji Sakai has multiple plug-ins, his talent for the free method can only be considered average. In comparison with the talent for the free method shown by Qin Ren's original Vestakahashi, Wilhelmina and others continued to train, but the good times did not last long. Less than 10 days later, the masquerade came. In the teaching of the free method led by Majonglin, Qin Ren slacked off and also dredged up his knowledge of the free method. Although the last incident of the exploration allowed him to take advantage of the troubled waters to reap a wave, it was much less than the large wave of harvests from the devouring city. Although he can already act as a fire fog warrior and has a certain strength, in the final analysis, the amount of existence power is not much, and it is still within the scope of a disciple. However, just as he was fitting his mirror sand structure with the law of freedom based on his understanding of the original plot, and turning the people of Misaki City into potential collection devices of the power of existence, suddenly, the law of freedom components left by the Tandenkai Ujiu Institute, which he monitored with the mirror sand creatures, suddenly moved. Is it finally here? Qin Ren did not interfere, and just watched the law of freedom components slowly start up. As a change from the boring study of the law of freedom, Sakayuji began to train against Shanna. Sakayuji seemed to have noticed the movement, and suddenly turned his head, and was hit on the head by the wooden sword in Shanna's hand, and was scolded again. Sakayuji, what are you doing? Do you want to rest again? Although he was a big shot in combat, Alistair, who was not good at perception, thought that Sakayuji was once again in a state of fatigue, and gave him a warning. No, it feels like something is not right. Although Sakayuji felt the movement, the feeling was just a feeling, not a prediction of the future. He frowned, and finally found a similar feeling, just like the situation 10 days ago. It's really a cheating perception. Qin Ren couldn't help but mutter in his heart when he heard what Yuji Sakai said. 10 days ago? Qin Ren asked very cooperatively, Brother Sakai, are you telling the truth? Yes, Mr. Bakulian. Yuji Sakai, who had a wave of favorability from Qin Ren's previous operation, respected Qin Ren very much. Miss Margarine, Miss Carmel, and Ms. Shanna, it's better to confirm it, Qin Ren said to the other 3 people, and then asked Sakai Radar again knowingly, Brother Sakai, can you confirm the specific direction? Yuji Sakai heard this and hurriedly sensed it carefully. Sorry, Mr. Bakulian. Obviously, although he could feel something was wrong, he couldn't feel the specific problem. This is also certain, because the freestyle is just entering the process of starting up, not already started. It is normal not to feel it, and the location where it appeared is probably the sky. Qin Ren, who had something to hide, certainly didn't tell the news. He pretended to think for a while. I'll start from here and search once. With the implicit meaning of you go search in other directions, Qin Ren injected the power of existence into his legs and jumped directly to the east in the sight of everyone. Stripping away the sense of existence, He wrapped his body with the law of freedom that ordinary people ignored. Others did not act immediately, and in contrast, Qin Ren's trust brushed up Yuji Sakai's favorability. However, although others did not act immediately, Wilhelmina did not trust him. Marjolin could use large-scale law of freedom to search on the spot, and Shanna, she and Alistair also knew about Yuji Sakai's perception ability, but Wilhelmina did not leave, and Shanna did not dare to leave. She thought Wilhelmina might still kill Yuji, especially when the enemy attacked. Although he made the move to leave, Qin Ren was still paying attention to the actions of those people. As expected, it's not that easy to lure the Firefog warriors away. Qin Ren sighed, then my work as a traitor is almost done. Next, it's up to you guys to have a masquerade. While watching the activation devices through the mirror sand creatures, Qin Ren's mouth curled up into a smile. The mirror sand that flowed out of his hand swayed like a flame, reflecting a light green color. In the Xingli Palace, Master Tanden Kaiujiu, will the plan succeed? As the defense officer and deputy manager of the Xingli Palace, Lantif asked. Of course, in order to return to that perfect experimental site again, I have made a second preparation. Dantlio made a strange bird-like cry in a weird way of speaking without grammatical pauses. The distortion caused by multiple large-scale destruction in Misaki City is very rare. Dantlio had already prepared for the second transmission when he was carrying out the previous plan. If the activation device is discovered and concentrated and destroyed, it can be activated immediately. If it is not discovered, he can start it again remotely. And now, although Misaki City has been distorted by the hateful tuner, it seems that his activation device has not been found. Domino. Yes, Professor. At the call of the master, Phosphorus Domino stretched out its mechanical arm and pulled down a huge joystick. Chapter 643 I am destroying. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The activation devices throughout the city resonated. Freestyle totems spread toward the sky, stretching and twisting. Only a few people in this city can feel the buzzing vibration, and huge rings emerged. Is it really an investigation? Wilhelmina frowned and looked at the rings emerging in the sky. It's confirmed. In the voice of the dreamy crowned Tiamat, the abnormal changes in the sky were reflected on Marjolin's plain glasses. That crazy professor really didn't give up. Looking at the chaotic scene in the sky, Marjolin's beautiful face showed a complicated smile. As a fire mist warrior, she blamed herself for not finding out what was left, and she might welcome the masquerade and the throbbing of the enemy silver that she had been pursuing for a long time. Hey, I told you a long time ago that the confused inventor might leave something tricky. Ah, it hurts. The giant book grimoire tucked under Marjolin's right armpit let out a sharp and piercing cry of pain. Retracting her left fist, Marjolin asked, Stupid Marco, can you sense the location of the anomaly? It's a bit like before, not messy, but spread all over Misaki City. There should be a pattern, a bit like the Aizen siblings mechanism that uses torches as an auxiliary and relay. And there is also a feeling of expansion and extension from the freestyle itself, releasing the exploration of the freestyle method outward, like a ripple and the perception extension released to the entire city. Marcos's response sounded. That foolish inventor king must have left some treasure similar to the Aizen siblings in the city. As experts in the freestyle method, Marjolin and Marcos knew that it was impossible to drive the freestyle method that spread throughout the city at once and not reveal their presence at all. With the experience of the previous few times and the target of the search, Marjolin and Marcos quickly found the target based on the extension of the exploration of the freestyle method. But, isn't the number too much? The two couldn't help but make a sound of disbelief. There will definitely be more. Qin Ren heard Makayanglin's words from the original Vest Takahashi who stayed with Makayanglin and others. It's really hard work to copy so many automi. In various places in Misaki City, there are cradle garden cores with Aizen brothers and sisters, which look like treasures of automi. Of course, these can't be real, and none of them are real. They are all tricks set up by Qin Ren. He has completely recorded the structure of the automi during this period, and can make automi one by one through mirror sand. If he wants, he can use the mirror sand creatures arranged in various places in Misaki City as gears to unfold countless cradle gardens. But he obviously won't do that, and there is no benefit. He just needs to help the masquerade cover up the action. For the next plan, this is a necessary investment. Xingli Palace. The judge of the counterintuitive law Belpial and Thousand Changes Xiu Dinan were standing outside the power room of the Xingli Palace, looking at Dantlio and his phosphorus assistant Domino, who kept making strange noises, with different expressions. "Professor, are you sure it can be transferred?" Belpial asked. Xiu Dinan also looked at Dantlio through his sunglasses. "Of course, as long as I have this." With a strange bird-like cry, Dantlio took out a treasure that looked like a music box from his white coat. Seeing the treasure, Xiu Dinan's eyes paused slightly. "What is that?" "This is my crystal of learning number 36,894. Dantlio screamed and was about to name the treasure. "But Professor, I picked up this treasure." At this time, Domino raised his mechanical arm high. "Domino, you have behaved very well. I will give you a reward for being a good child, but I have fully modified this treasure." Dantlio renamed the treasure Augur on the grounds that he had modified it. Belipia noticed the subtle change in Zudinan's expression and asked, "What's wrong?" "Qianbian." "Ah, that's the treasure of the brother and sister." Qianbian was just a little surprised. "The brother and sister? Oh, Azenzi and Azenta?" Belipia also had an impression of the brother and sister, because she had noticed the uniqueness of the brother Azenzi Surat's existence power. If it weren't for the big shortcomings, she would have planned to include it in the plan. But, unfortunately, the brother and sister have been killed by the Fire Mist Warrior. However, because of this, Zudinan brought back the news of the lost child at 0 time. That treasure can continuously run the input-free method, and I don't know what it will be modified into by Tantan Kyujiu. Zudinan looked at Dantlio, who was talking to Phosphorus Assistant, and thought to himself. However, at this time, Dantlio suddenly turned his head. "It's done." It started successfully. At the same time, Wilhelmina, Shanna, the two Fire Mist Warriors, as well as Sakayuji and Takahashi, all looked like they had not recovered from the news that Marjolin had said. "How many hundreds of self-styled devices are being activated in the whole city?" Similar to the aura of the Azen brothers and sisters' self-song? "Hundreds. This number is really too exaggerated." However, Marjolin was not joking. At this time, the bookmark in her hand suddenly lit up. It was not from Sato and Tanaka, who had just rushed to the department store to see the glass jar under her order, but from the lost guide. "Hey, Miss Marjolin, I found a lot of self-styled devices with a similar aura to the treasure here." Qin Ren's voice came from the bookmark. "Is that so?" Marjolin's face was a little ugly. After confirmation by her companion, the situation seemed quite bad. Even if they were destroyed one by one, there would not be enough time. But, Miss Marjolin, these free law devices are probably not part of this large free law. They seem to be independent, and their function is to collect the power of nearby existence. The news she heard from the lost guide made her feel both relieved and puzzled. Attracting attention? This conjecture emerged in Marjolin's mind. "It may be, but I can't be sure. I can only be sure that it is not part of this large free law. The real structure is engraved in some electrical appliances. I am destroying it." Qin Ren, who was far away on the other side, told Marjolin the real situation without any doubt, because it was too late. With a buzzing sound, a huge seal and a sky full of red clouds enveloped the entire Misaki city. A huge floating island like a hill appeared in the sky full of clouds. Xingli Palace, descend. Chapter 644 Sneak Attack. As the red seal caused the entire Misaki city to fall into a state of stagnation, the huge Xingli Palace, this floating island, emerged from the circle of interweaving free magic totems. One by one, the Red World Apostles descended from the Xingli Palace and landed in Misaki City. It's okay to harvest as a Fire Mist Warrior, but, before the official plan, you can also get familiar with the use of the identity of a disciple duel. He raised his right hand, and the purple-black mirror sand condensed on his right arm into the shape of a dual disc. Activate the magic card Lightning Strike. On the card surface condensed by the purple-black mirror sand, a bright lightning appeared and shot down. After Qin Ren made a pretentious move, the Red World Apostles who appeared near him were also attracted as he wished. What is that? Freestyle? Noble phantasm. In the subconscious speculations of the Apostles, The mirror sand that flew into the sky instantly condensed into purple-black lightning and shot down, knocking several disciples to the ground. The effect of the lightning strike is to send some of the enemy's monsters to our graveyard. Qin Ren said nonsense, and changed the lightning strike effect that would destroy all enemies. The apostles who were hit by the dark thunder were instantly wrapped in the surging mirror sand, while the Qin people recorded the characteristics of these apostles at the fastest speed. The other apostles who were not hit or blocked the attack also quickly adjusted their postures and besieged the Qin people. On the other side, where the three fire mist warriors gathered, several powerful red world apostles appeared in front of them. One was a bit like a rhinoceros beetle, with a humanoid posture, a whole orange body, and a body of 2 or 3 meters. Suddenly, Izir, seeing the red world apostle who looked like a humanoid beetle, Mina's face changed. This was not an ordinary red world apostle, but a red world demon king, a direct tour of Belpiaru, one of the 3 pillars of the masquerade. Wow! 3 fire mist warriors, dream-crowned Tiamat, and the ravaging minion Marcoses gathered at once. The demon king with a humanoid beetle face laughed loudly. Hee, it's not a sparrow that came, but a stag. The voice of Marcoses sounded from the book. Toka, as Magellan shouted, ultramarine flames swirled around her, turning her into a giant beast in the form of a wolf and bear, and entered a fighting posture. However, at this time, a flame fell to the ground and appeared next to Izir. It was a humanoid creature with a lion's head, wearing a costume like in a circus. The roaring Suani. Prusn. Alistair's voice sounded. Hearing the voice, the lion-headed red world demon king bowed his head respectfully. Lord Judge. He responded to Alistair with a respectful title, but that was all. The lion-headed demon king Prusn looked at Shanna and laughed. It seems that the general didn't understand that the princess has been replaced. Although Alistair was hostile to them, the other party was the embodiment of the laws of the Red World and one of the 3 pillars of the Red World. And the person who made a contract with the god of judgment, heaven and earth fire, was the princess to them. Although they were enemies in terms of position, it did not prevent him from calling her that. As he spoke, another flame fell. However, the appearance of the enemy made Alistair, Wilhelmina, the Dream Crown, and Marjolaine all solemn. It was a woman in a long skirt with one eye on her head and the right eye covered, the judge of the reverse reason Belpialu. The moment she realized the identity of this person, Wilhelmina immediately took off the maid's headdress on her head. Under the lingering cherry-colored flames, the maid's headdress turned into a half-face mask, covering Wilhelmina's face. At the moment of hearing the name from Alistair, the Dark Knight had also unfolded. Shanna drew out the Zidianazana, and her black hair instantly turned red, swaying like a flame with fiery red fire powder. The 3 fire mist warriors all cast their eyes on the 3 people in front of them. They must do their best to deal with the strength of these 3 red world demon kings. What are you going to do with such a large law of freedom? Don't you know how much impact this scale of law of freedom will have on the world? Alistair's voice sounded. Although he asked the question, he did not think that he would get a response. However, unexpectedly, Belpiaru responded with a smile. Danarang Jiuo, your fire mist warriors are really as hot-blooded as you. Unlike Prusn, Belpiaru did not have any respectful tone. As the 3 pillars of the sacrificial snake, she would not even have superficial respect for the fellow travelers of the fire mist warriors who exiled and sealed the sacrificial snake in the gap between the 2 worlds. Belpiaru smiled and replied, "You're talking about this serious matter. The heavenly tribulation fire, which is famous in the Red World, has also fallen. The next big scene is the real big scene. You can enjoy it slowly. Enjoy the grandeur of the Fountain of Existence. Fountain of Existence." The people present knew that the other party was coming for the lost child of the 0 hour. Fountain of Existence. Marjolaine and Marcoses, who were proficient in the law of freedom, immediately thought of a possibility. "Three-eyed monster, you don't want to turn Brother Mistis into a fountain, do you?" Hearing Marcoses' call, the suddenly hung Izir next to him instantly showed anger on his face. As the person involved, Belpiaru's face did not change at all, and she still had a smile on her face. "Marcoses, it seems that you can't wait to return to the Red World." However, Wilhelmina, who looked at Belpiaru's harsh words, frowned under the mask. Belle should not come here to do such a meaningless thing. Known as the military advisor, and in modern times as the staff officer, she has a big conspiracy every time she takes action. What is the conspiracy? In addition to targeting the 0-hour lost child, there is also 0-hour lost child. Wilhelmina suddenly turned her head and looked at Yuji Sakai and Mrs. Takahashi, who was standing with him. Not far from the two, a short-haired man with silver-gray hair wearing sunglasses appeared there at some point. Not good. Cyan. Countless white bandages gathered on Wilhelmina's right hand and condensed into a hard javelin. Destroy it before being captured. Cyan Zudinen, who completely concealed his breath with the free method and the device of the exploration, smiled. Haha, it's too late. Zudinen's right arm turned into a giant claw with unknown beast or a mixture of beast characteristics, grabbing towards Yuji Sakai, who was close at hand. Seeing this scene, Yuji Sakai was horrified. But at this moment, he heard a shout from the side. Sakai! Under the gaze of everyone, Takahashi rushed out, and then was pierced by the white bandage javelin. The blue flame suddenly collapsed. Sakai Yuji, who was caught by Zudinen, watched his friend die in front of him. Only an inaudible whisper was left in his ear. Jump to save. Qin Ren, who was far away at the other end, smiled. This should be called the original scene reappearance. It's a pity that the heroine is not. Chapter 645 Sneak Attack. The last brainwash needle that Qin Ren cast with Magia's death obviously had a great impact on Yuji Sakai. However, he did not have the opportunity to do anything. Cyan Zudinen's giant claws had already grabbed his body. Yuji, Shanna turned around immediately, and the blazing red flame surged from behind, turning into wings, and the Zidianzana in her hand suddenly rolled up a wave of flames and slashed towards Zudinen. Don't ignore me. The inner fighting spirit of the itinerant Modul Ibizal was ignited by anger. This red world devil turned the anger that surged in his heart into a roar as a return gift. Along with the roar, the orange red sphere hanging on his chest, like a pearl, as big as a fist, suddenly flew out and turned into clones that were exactly the same as the original body. The orange-red flames lingered on his body and surged with his attacks. If you don't resist, you will definitely be seriously injured. Shanna couldn't ignore the attack either. But at this time, the ultramarine flame swept over. Your opponent is me. Majonglin, who was wearing a flame coat and transformed into a wolf-bear beast, roared, and her giant claws collided with Libizal's insect claws, and with the ring of the Law of Freedom, several blue flame giant wolves pounced on Libizal's clone. At the same time, the lion-headed Prusen raised a treasure that looked like a Saona and put it to his mouth. I won't let you succeed. Although Wilhelmina did not expect Takahashi to stand up to block the attack, as a fire mist warrior who had been on the battlefield for a long time, she immediately recovered and noticed Prusen's actions. Countless bandages entangled and rolled, like the tip of a sharp blade, attacking Prusen. Shanna did not interrupt the attack because of the two people's cover, but a slight delay was enough for Cyan Zudinen, the strongest apostle under the three gods, to do many things. It was only a short delay, and he had already flown into the sky with Sakai Yuji. When Shanna wanted to chase, Bellole appeared in front of her. This threat from another of the three pillars forced Shanna to change her target and attack Bellole. However, facing the rolling red flames of Zidianza, Bellole had no intention of resisting or avoiding. The red engulfed Bellole's body. Then, the turbid purple flame appeared. Thousand changes. Seeing the turbid purple flame, Alistair and Shanna immediately realized that the Bellole just now was just a fake puppet made by Zudinen. Because of the characteristics of the existence force of Thousand Changes Zudinen, the two did not distinguish the real from the fake. Shanna immediately raised her head and turned her sight to the sky, looking at Zudinen in the sky, and spread the wings of fire behind her, and was about to chase after him. But at this moment, behind, Alistair's voice suddenly sounded. Without any hesitation, Shanna activated the free method, Night Hat. The dark cloak emerged from her shoulders, covering her back. Boom! With the sound of explosion, the giant claw of turbid purple flames slammed into the free method of the feathers of Alistair that Yogashi had embodied. Shanna's body was directly blown away. Seeing this, Wilhelmina's body burst into a wave of cherry-colored flames. Although the expression could not be seen from the mask, Prusen knew the other party's anger at the moment. There was no thought of resisting, and the real body of Shurima, who attacked Shanna from behind, flapped its bat-like membrane wings and flew into the sky, and the Shurima who was holding Sakayuji hostage also returned to the appearance of a black-haired young man. Ferocious Saddle or Ruiz, Shurima's direct subordinate. Looking at the two figures, Prusen's feet also exploded with flames and flew directly into the sky. Izir, let's go. Glancing down, Prusen put the Siona-like treasure in front of his mouth. Roar! The destructive shock wave formed by circles of flames bombarded Majorlin. At Marcos's warning, Majorlin immediately retreated. Although Izir had not yet had enough fun, at this time, he had no intention of disobeying orders and staying. With the ground cracking, his tall body suddenly flew up in a powerful explosion. People who are stronger than you don't choose to fight without thinking, and don't give you the opportunity to find loopholes. Even if they are strong against weak, they choose to sneak attack. You have no way. Qin Ren couldn't help sighing as he observed the battle at Shanna and others from a distance. Because the main battlefield was on Shanna's side, the disciples who appeared around him were not powerful disciples, but basically small fish. However, it was just right torrential burial. Pretending to slap the card condensed by the mirror sand on the dual disc, the endless torrent formed by the mirror sand swallowed up dozens of disciples around. Power, quite wonderful. Using the fragments of the power of the mirror as a converter, Qin Ren efficiently absorbed the power of a group of disciples. Unfortunately, even if he absorbed 10 or 100 times more, he was still as weak as an ant compared to the main body. To other disciples, this scene was just a scene where the Fire Fog warrior killed a large number of disciples in an instant by using an unknown method. However, soon, the disciples who were not killed at the first time were also swept by countless purple-black whirlwinds, and their bodies were broken apart and died in the exploding whirlwinds. He absorbed the existence power obtained from the splitting of each disciple until he killed all the disciples who gathered nearby. Qin Ren stopped his action with a sense of satisfaction and dispersed the dual disc condensed by the mirror sand. At this time, the existence power gathered on his body was close to 20,000. It has reached the level of the Red World Demon King. However, these are not important. The important thing is that Qin Ren turned his head and looked far away. In front of him on the left, there was a Red World disciple who was peeping. It was a Red World disciple in the form of a wolf. Seeing Qin Ren, the other party couldn't help but sighed. What a fierce prop. Seeing that Qin Ren seemed to be searching for something, he couldn't help but sigh and turned to run away. But at this moment, a voice sounded in his ears. Hello. A white-haired man appeared in his field of vision, with a smile on his face that made him feel cold. You. However, he could not make any sound. His whole body was wrapped and imprisoned by the surging black quicksand. I'll give you something good. The prop in front of him laughed. However, he could not say anything about this prop, a derogatory term for the fire mist warrior. The next moment, a golden ring appeared in the eyes of the werewolf Fleck, and golden cones were hanging around the ring. Not long after, the werewolf stood up again. The dark mirror sand flowed into his body. Next, I can move my hands and feet properly. Rubbing his wrist, the werewolf Fleck looked at the floating island in the sky. Chapter 646, Werewolf Fleck. In the Xingli Palace. In the huge palace surrounded by countless buildings, the three pillars were standing outside the door. Do you agree? Hecate, merge with this kind of mistis. Although he showed obvious dissatisfaction, Thousand Changes Zudin still asked Hecate. It doesn't matter, as long as the 0 time lost can fulfill my wish. The inorganic girl wearing a big white hat, a wide white cloak, and shoulder-length light blue hair spoke. The girl was Hecate, top seat, one of the three pillars of the masquerade. You really like to show unnecessary concern. Thousand Changes, the three-eyed woman, Belpiaru, leaned against the doorpost and said, Hecate will become forever filled with the power of existence. Her face was full of smiles. Use the Chaos Temple. Then, she turned her head and looked at the door. Just as she looked at the door opened with a heavy creaking sound. Isn't that right, Professor? Of course. Dantlio, who walked out of the gate, raised his thick eyepiece, and the light green flame on his right hand that was raised excitedly condensed into a mechanical arm. Use the cycle. Dantlio revealed the principle of the 0 hour lost to the three people. Using the clock that symbolizes eternity, the deterioration and consumption produced in a day are all negated, so the power absorbed later will also be restored, and the properties during the cycle will not be interfered with in the same way. The power source comes from the reaction force of the distortion caused by the lack, or the recovery power of the distorted world. The treasure 0 hour lost is to produce a joint resonance with the chaos and distortion caused by the world itself to the red world apostle, and the huge self-recovery power, which can be said to indirectly steal the existence of the world itself. It is also another kind of parasitism, however, because the object is the world. If the world is not destroyed, then the 0 hour lost is equivalent to an infinite battery with 0 o'clock every day as the node. Dandenkai Ujiu danced with great excitement. This principle was not difficult for him to understand. What he wanted to know was how it was done. What kind of free law was used to achieve such a function? Before, he was studying why the free law could work. Why the free law could work. Why the combination of totem characters and the power of existence could work. And the 0 time lost child, a parasite that directly connected to the world and directly parasitized the world, was a good bridge. If it could be studied thoroughly, it would be a great help in exploring the principle of the effectiveness of the free law. However, Thousand Changes Zayudinin was not very interested in these studies. He only had ideas about what was about to happen to Hikari. That's what I care about, my pure Hikari. Do I need to make some extra adjustments? Zayudinin looked at Hikari. Because he had a very large capacity and even infinite power of existence, the desire to want to get was also close to infinity, because it could never be satisfied, so it was pure. He could understand that if he merged with the 0 time lost child, he could rely on the 0 time lost child's mechanism to obtain the power of existence from the self-recovery power of the world. The characteristic of the 0 time lost child was to restore all the power of existence consumed by the container. What will happen when an infinite container meets an energy source that can be restored without limit? No need to make any adjustments. Nothing will change. The quality of purity is a very important foundation for the Chaos Temple, right? Professor, have you finished the adjustments to the Chaos Temple? The judge of the reverse reason Belepielu smiled and looked at Dandenkai Ujiu. Yes. The 0 time lost deceives the world and uses the world's self-recovery ability. Then we can also continuously extract the power of existence from the container before the container is full, and obtain the infinite power of existence by deceiving the 0 time lost. Dantlio screamed, and light green flames continued to emerge around him, condensing into various tools, and disappeared the next moment. Then let's start. When Belepielu's voice sounded, Topseed Hecate stood up and walked towards Dantlio in the eyes of Zudinin, who was quite unhappy. Uncle. Hearing Hecate addressing Dantlio, Thousand Changes Zudinin's face burst into an unhappy smile again. Domino. Dantlio obviously didn't remember that this name was for himself. He didn't respond at all and called out the name of his assistant. It's ready, Professor. Phosphorus Domino, in the shape of a chubby robot, responded loudly in the huge room. In the huge room, Yoji Sakai was embedded in the huge machine like a stone sculpture, motionless, as if connected to the machine. At the same time, on the other side, the werewolf Fleck was somewhere in the Xinglai temple, chatting with another disciple, waiting for the plan to begin. Next to him, the dog-faced Red World Apostle, who was obviously a small fry, was lamenting how terrifying the fire mist warriors that appeared in Misaki City were. It's really terrifying that so many tools have gathered in this place. Whether it's the minion of Ravage Marcoses, or the Heavenly Tribulation Fire and the Dream Crown, they are all quite terrifying. It's really terrifying. The werewolf Fleck responded with an expression as if he had escaped with his life. Although the witch, the general and the staff are very strong, we are not. If we meet those guys, it will be dangerous. But, speaking of it, it seems that there is another tool that I haven't heard of before. It should be a small fry, right? The dog-faced Red World Apostle laughed. Yes, it is indeed a small fry. When he heard the voice, he suddenly found that his companion stopped moving. What's wrong, Fleck? Are you scared and can't move? He laughed again. No, it's just that there seems to be no one here. Fleck responded, yeah, there's no one here. What's wrong? The dog-faced Red World cultist was a little confused, not knowing why Fleck said that. Nothing, I just couldn't help it. The next moment, he saw his companion in front of him open his wolf kiss, and endless reddish-brown gushed out like sand and tides, instantly sweeping his body. In a short moment, only Fleck was left in this narrow underground corridor. Then, he raised his head and looked in the direction of the central hall. When can we have the main meal? It's not good to eat too many snacks. Chapter 647 Preparation completed. Domino. What are you doing? Move quickly. Dantlio, who was operating the artificial treasure Chaos Temple, made a strange bird-like cry and urged his assistant Domino. Yes, Professor, Domino responded while the mechanical arm was busy operating the joystick connecting the mechanical gears and transmission components. However, no one noticed that from Domino's body, a little bit of light green, like sand, flowed out and drilled into the interior of the Chaos Temple along the joystick. Qin Ren, acting as the werewolf Fleck, wandered around the Xinglai Temple. Because of the ban, he, a middle-level staff, could not step into some important places casually. But it was precisely because of this that he knew what was important. The red mirror sand poured out of the body, and in the next moment it turned into the color of sand and soil, seeping into the ground. When it seeped into a place that could not be reached by sight, the mirror sand turned into a pure white color. That was the color of fair agni. Then, Qin Ren felt a blockage. Sure enough, if you want to infiltrate and control Xinglai Palace, you can't do it from the outside. You can only go through the core control room. At this time, a Red World disciple with a bull's head appeared in his sight. Fleck, what are you doing here? Is this your patrol area? A puzzled look appeared on the face of the bull-headed disciple. I don't know where Bryce ran off to. I came to find him. Qin Ren opened and closed his wolf mouth, and said the name of the dog-faced disciple who was eaten by him before. Is Bryce running around? That shouldn't be the case. That guy won't leave until it's time to change shifts. Qin Ren's words made the bull-headed disciple a little confused, but he didn't doubt Fleck. After scratching his head in confusion, he turned around. You'd better go back quickly, otherwise you will be scolded again if the patrol supervisor finds you. However, at the moment he turned around, before he finished speaking, the mirror sand like a wave rolled over and swept the bull-headed disciple in. The rolling sand wave only appeared for a moment, and the next moment it surged back to Blake's body, as if it had never appeared. What a pity, I can't eat too much. If I make too many mirror sand soldiers, I can't control them. Although they are made according to the structural model of Domino, each disciple has different personality and action mode. The details need to be adjusted, and the mirror sand must be maintained. While complaining in his heart, Qin Ren waved his wolf claws. Mirror sand surged out with the waving of the wolf claws, and condensed into mirror sand soldiers with the same appearance as the bull-headed disciples just now. After the mirror sand soldiers condensed, they turned and left. But moreover, the condensed mirror sand soldiers cannot be more important trolls, and cannot be combat trolls, otherwise they are easy to be exposed. Mirror sand can only be supplied by him, and cannot be absorbed and transformed autonomously. Oh, it's really troublesome. At this time, countless huge circles burst out of the central castle of Xinglai Temple. Chaos Temple, it started. It's finally started. Qin Ren turned his head and looked at the ground. No, it should be said that he looked down. Suddenly, in the center of the Xinglai Palace, from the towering medieval castle spire, countless raindrops of dark blue existence force gushed out, and suddenly fell in this huge seal. Like rain, the existence force descended from the stagnant red night sky. It is so. In some way, the capacity of the 0 hour lost is expanded, and then the existence force is extracted before the 0 hour lost is fully restored. The Bakulai Angle floating in the air looked up at the Xinglai Palace and said to himself. Then, he lowered his head and looked at the three people in front of him and said, 3, are you ready? Shanna, Ma Kyunglan, and Wilhelmina nodded. Because Shanna was not severely injured by sacrificing herself to block the attack like in the animation, she was just hit hard by Zudinen, but because of Alistair's night hat blocking it, Shanna was only slightly injured, so she quickly regrouped. After Qin Ren gave a guess as Bakuryoro, the three of them discussed and prepared to rush into Xingli Palace to rescue Sakayuji. "Well, let's go." Bakuryoro waved his right hand and pretended to pull out a card from the dual disc in his hand. The flowing mirror sand suddenly gathered into a whirlwind-like purple-black vortex, lifting his body up, with him as the leader. Shanna's back rolled up with flames and spread her wings to fly up. Ma Qianglin stepped on the giant book and floated out, and Wilhelmina immediately followed. Below, Yoshida Kazumi watched the figures of the four people go away. In the old Ida department store, Sato Kusako and Tanaka Ito also stared closely at the image in the glass jar. But very good. All over Misaki City, the mirror sand creatures that were living in torches and ordinary people's bodies, in the next moment, collectively escaped and fell to the ground. The bodies of the mirror sand creatures suddenly twisted and deformed, like a music box, extending outward from the ground to form a circle of the free law totem. Giant flowers bloomed under the ground and merged with the plants in various parts of Misaki City. The raindrops falling from the sky were instantly absorbed when they landed near the giant flowers of the mirror sand. The collection device of the power of existence is also completed. How much power of existence can be collected this time? A mirror sand creature in the form of a wild cat made a sound. But no matter what, at least he can gain a lot of power, plus the mirror sand embedded in the Chaos Temple. This time the harvest is very big. It would be great if we could record the lost child of 0 hour, but it's a pity that it can't be done. Qin Ren in the form of a werewolf fleck couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Sighing, he still distracted himself to control Takarada and led the three people to rush to the central castle of Xingli Palace. The power of existence is gushing out from the central building. The lost guide Beilangle controlled by Qin Ren spoke. He was about to lead the three people to rush in. However, at this moment, a series of turbid purple flames suddenly attacked from the lower side. Qin Ren quickly controlled Beilangle to condense the mirror sand to form a purple-black shield to resist, and Ma Qianglin and the other two also released the free method or used weapons to block the attack quite concisely. It's not good to break into someone else's territory like this. The man wearing sunglasses and holding a long spear appeared in front of the three people at the same time. "Thousand changes Zayudinen." Alistair's voice sounded from the pendant on Shanna's chest. "You go first, leave it to me." The situation was urgent and a quick battle was decided. With this idea in mind, Ma Qianglin put on the flame coat without any hesitation. Surrounded by the blue flames, the wolf bear-like beast pounced on Zayudinen. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 648 Braised Lion's Head. Zayudinen, who seemed to be a synthetic beast, showed the physical characteristics of various creatures. When he was struggling with the giant beast transformed by Ma Qianglin, Qin Ren immediately controlled Moliangle to charge towards the central castle of Xingli Palace. Shanna and Ma Qianglin were forced to act because of Moliangle's actions, and rushed out behind Moliangle. However, not long after flying, a red flame bomb shot from the lower side. When the flame bomb hit, Moliangle raised the card in his hand. Holy Shield, Reflector Force. With the emergence of white light, the burning red flame bomb hit the energy shield that seemed to be shining with golden light. Then, the burning red flame bomb suddenly turned back and shot back to the original trajectory. In the vision of Shanna and Ma Qianglin, the burning red flame bomb suddenly hit a red world disciple in the shape of a werewolf. However, the flame bomb did not cause him much damage. The next moment, the wolf-like red world disciple opened his mouth and spewed out countless fire bombs like a rain of fire. Whirlwind. Facing the rain of fire, Burr drew out his card again, and a black whirlwind suddenly rose up, engulfing the rain of fire. "I'll hold him back," Burr shouted to Shanna and Wilhelmina. There was no response, but Shanna and Wilhelmina responded with action and rushed directly to the castle. Then, Burr and the wolf-fleck began to fight. Looking at Burr in front of him, Qin Ren smiled in his heart. It was really fresh to fight with his own sand soldiers. No, it should be called fun, but since it was a battle, then fight well and accidentally break a few places, under the gaze of other disciples who appeared because of the commotion. Burr and the wolf Fleck fought fiercely. The burning red flames and purple-black flames flew everywhere, bombing and shattering the buildings of Xinglai Temple. In the flames that shot up into the sky, those disciples who tried to get close to help would be coincidentally killed by the flames of both. Did they actually come in to kill us? How reckless. Those tools. Proust, who was resting in his residence, sighed, and his huge lion head showed a tired look. However, he still walked out, wearing the fancy clothes that looked like medieval court clothes and circus costumes. Boom. With the sound of explosions, Proust, with the lion head, watched a building collapse, and then the werewolf Fleck was knocked out, leaving a long mark on the ground and stopping a few meters in front of him. Fleck, what means do the enemies you are fighting have? Proust, who did not like hard battles and preferred to fight with skills and wits, looked at the triangle who was lifted up by the purple-black flame and floated in the sky 100 meters away, and said, "He is very powerful in frontal combat, but not very fast. However, I didn't see him use any free methods." The disheveled werewolf Fleck barely stood up and responded to the question. Is he the same type as Libasl? What is the characteristic of the power of existence? Proust looked at the white-haired young man who looked quite thin. He did not doubt Fleck and began to plan a way to deal with this kind of enemy. The werewolf Fleck responded, "I'm not sure, but it should be a characteristic that can be combined with defense and offense. But it seems that his defense will be weakened when he attacks." "I see." When Proust said this response, the enemy had already rushed over. The werewolf Fleck immediately prepared for defense, and Proust also picked up the Saona-like treasure. "Fleck, try to cover me. After I strengthen you, we will find opportunities to attack separately." As the captain of the garrison, Proust issued an order. Yes, when the music Proust activated the freedom method, and the totems of countless sounds gathered to form a ring, which was about to strengthen himself and Fleck next to him. However, at the moment he activated the freedom method, he suddenly saw Fleck in front of him dodge sideways, exposing him directly to the white-haired young man. Fleck Proust was unbelievable. In an emergency, he immediately interrupted the use of the freedom method, surrounded by flames, and jumped to the side, ready to use his familiarity with the Xinglai Palace to dodge. Boom. The purple-black color like a tide and a flame hit the place where he just stood, and Proust dodged the attack at the critical moment. "I must punish Fleck, the coward. Later, kill him." Proust, who was betrayed by his teammate, burst into anger, but he had not lost his composure yet, and was ready to dodge again and then use the cover to launch a destructive attack with the freedom method Lion's Roar. However, at this moment, he suddenly felt a pain in his waist. Unbelievable. In the intense pain, he turned around and saw the werewolf Fleck smiling at him. "Braised lion's head? I didn't expect that the first time I ate the king of the red world would be so rich." Before Proust could react, endless purple-black covered his vision and everything in front of him, and the intense pain spread from the wound to all sides of his body. Struggling, Proust tried to struggle, but he had no chance. Looking at Proust who was tightly wrapped up, Qin Ren glanced at Triangle, looked at the raindrops of existence force that kept drifting outward and falling like raindrops, and smiled. "You should thank the three pillars, otherwise my existence force would not be able to directly suppress a king of the red world." On the balcony of the upper floor of the central castle, Wilhelmina and Shanna landed. "It's too quiet here." Trap. Wilhelmina's face did not change, but Shanna could understand the doubts expressed in the words of the two. "Time is running out, Shanna." Alistair was also quite puzzled that no one from the central castle came out to resist, but the arrow was already on the string. "I know." The figure of Sakayuji appeared in his mind. Shanna rushed into the castle first, and Wilhelmina rushed out immediately. Another part of the castle, Libas looked at Belepiel beside him, with confusion on his face. "Coach, don't we need to stop them? Just let them take back the lost child of 0 hour?" Belepiel replied without turning her head. "No need." "Why do you think I withdrew most of my disciples from the Star Palace?" "Our goal has been achieved. The next preparation will take a long time." We haven't gathered the army yet. If we take away the lost child of 0 hour now, those fire mist warriors will keep causing trouble. Besides, what can make those fire mist warriors relax more than a victory? Belial smiled and walked towards the road that Shanna and Wilhelmina had to pass. However, symbolic resistance still needs to be made. P.S. Because of the magical changes in the animation, there are many bugs in Shanna, and the same is true for the Star Palace in the original plot at the end of the first season, so I can only make up for it barely. Chapter 649. The old man arrives. Shanna and Wilhelmina, who had already rushed into the castle of Xingli Palace, entered a room and were about to move forward when they suddenly heard a sound coming from the front. Without thinking too much, the two of them dodged immediately. The next moment, dense arrows wrapped in light green flames shot from the front. Red Lotus Odachi, Flying Flame. The blazing red flame wave was lifted up by Shanna's dachi and collided with the rain of arrows. With the sound of explosion, the blazing red and light green flames splashed everywhere. However, unexpectedly, after destroying the rain of arrows, the blazing red flame wave inexplicably dissipated while flying to the passage ahead. No, considering the range of Flying Flame, it is impossible to dissipate so quickly, and the rain of arrows just now should not be so powerful. Is there something strange about those arrows? Did it wear down the power of Flying Flame? Shanna couldn't help but think. However, at this moment, a sound was heard again in the passage ahead. However, it was a sound of footsteps. Is it a disciple? Shanna, Wilhelmina and the two demon kings were alert. No, it's Phosphorus, the Phosphorus that seeks to explore. A group of robots appeared in their field of vision. However, they did not feel the power of existence. The doubts that Shanna and Wilhelmina had were soon replaced by another situation. The power of existence was rapidly draining away. The power of existence was being stripped from the body. Wilhelmina, the power of existence was sucked away. Shanna hurriedly reminded Wilhelmina beside her. Up there, Wilhelmina looked up and said, "The power of existence is draining upwards." Keep going, the longer the better. We should be able to take the opportunity to collect more. Qin Ren could not help but smile as he sensed that the mirror sand creatures that he had imitated and mapped with mirror sand and whose prototype was the Phosphorus of Azentatilia were constantly absorbing the power of existence. No wonder they all liked to sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight, and reap the benefits of the fishermen. While controlling the bitter fight between Takarada and the two Red World disciples, Qin Ren integrated the power of existence. The imitation Phosphorus can absorb and store a limited amount of existence force, with itself as the center, forming a cradle garden. Qin Ren is constantly converting the absorbed existence force into mirror sand. It's only been 10 minutes, and the amount of existence force has exceeded 100,000. It has exceeded the amount of existence force that the General Red World Demon King can possess. If he continues to delay, he can collect more. No. It is enough to just record Sakayuji's 0-hour lost child completely. But at this moment, Qin Ren suddenly froze, and his eyes suddenly turned to the east of Misaki City. It's really difficult. Why is Kamsen back? It can't be so blatant. It's a pity. At the easternmost part of Misaki City, a young man with skin that is close to bronze, as if it is left by long-term sun exposure, stepped into the seal. Being in this seal filled with red light, Kamsen couldn't help but be surprised by the scene in front of him. Ah, this is, well, it's really surprising, such a huge power of existence is almost saturated. An old voice sounded on his bracelet, but if someone heard the indifferent tone of the two, they would definitely doubt whether they were really surprised. That floating island, is it a treasure? Tandao Palace, is it made by the Tanarang Jiuo? Kamsen's sight immediately moved to the position that looked most like the culprit. The floating island floating in the sky. No, the heavenly tribulation fire will not do such a thing. It is probably the Xingli Palace, another treasure corresponding to the heavenly Dao Palace. Behayward responded. In short, we have to move faster. The existence power of this city is almost saturated. If we continue, it will collapse due to oversaturation. Ah, I know. Kamsen's faint voice spread. This amount of existence power can complete the dress-up without spending too much time. Just right. The white bandages on his back were all untied in an instant. Kamsin pulled out the iron rod behind him with both hands and raised it easily. Dress up, Katarxiu's blood seal, set. With a brief conversation between Kamsin and Behemoth, the huge iron rod fell to the ground. Bang! With the sound of explosion, circles of freestyle rings instantly appeared on the ground. Dozens of freestyle totems were depicted and spread out. Drive! Kamsin spoke again, and his whole body was immediately surrounded by earth-brown flames. Katarxiu's ventricle. Kamsin floated up and swung the huge iron rod in his hand forward. Constitute the freestyle, the blood of Katarxiu. Behemoth took over and spoke, and countless flames splashed out from the dozens of freestyles around him, looking like a big snake or a rope. The flames swayed and meandered, spreading on the ground like blood vessels, and the two ends of the swaying flame snake began to entangle and intersect. Dozens of flames combined with Katarxiu's ventricle. Without waiting, Kamsin immediately continued to activate the free method, deploy, synchronize and link with a freestyle, Katarxiu's blood. Sure enough, it can't be that smooth. Qin Ren looked at the giant rising from the ground in the distance, looked at the huge stone formed by countless stones wrapped around the huge iron rod at his hand, and looked at the Xingli Palace again, and couldn't help but sigh. Try to collect as much as possible. On the Xingli Palace, Ma Qianglin was fighting with Xiu Denan. Ma Zhonglin kept releasing a group of blue flame wolves to attack with Doggerel as the activation words of the freedom method. Because of the extremely dense existence power around, the gap between Ma Zhonglin and Xiu Denan was quickly narrowed. Although she was at a slight disadvantage, she was still able to entangle Xiu Denan and prevent him from escaping. However, at this time, the appearance of the stone giant whose figure broke through the sky was impossible for the two to ignore. Old man, unyielding sharp ridge. Ma Zhonglin and Xiu Denan's voices sounded almost at the same time. And the next moment, the huge stone condensed in the hand of the stone giant suddenly shot out. Wearing earth-brown flames, it was thrown up and slid down like a meteorite, smashing towards the Xingli Palace. Professor, Domino shouted in a panic, enemy attack, enemy attack. Domino, stay cool at all times. Dantlio, who had a calm face, only noticed the huge stone that fell at this time. Activate the anti-enemy defense device, and activate the transfer. Domino. Dantlio was also panicking. Yes, Domino immediately ran to the pile of joystick pushers next to him. But at this moment, accompanied by a loud bang, several joysticks in front of Dantlio suddenly exploded, and the reason? The blazing red flying flames and the blade-like bandages flew out at the same time, directly hitting the device above that extracted the power of existence. Chapter 650 completed. Problems occurred both inside and outside, making Dantlio flustered. Outside the Xingli Palace, circles of freestyle rings emerged with the surge of the power of existence, forming a black shield like the night. Although Kamsin launched an attack in Misaki City, which was full of the power of existence, and the thrown boulders were wrapped with a huge power comparable to that of meteorites, the guarding freestyle method also gained abundant energy under the environment of huge power of existence. The boulders surrounded by earth-brown flames collided with the black shield. Although it did not cause any damage to the Xingli Palace itself, under the strong impact, the entire floating island could not help but tilt to the side. The device that was extracting the overflowing power of existence from below also twisted its direction because of the tilt of the Xingli Palace. Feeling the huge suction force, the Qin people took the initiative to abandon several giant flower-shaped mirror sand creatures on the ground in the center of the suction vortex, dissociating them into mirror sand and mixing them with the ownerless power of existence around them. Should I say bad luck or good luck? Qin Ren couldn't help but mutter in his heart as he watched a huge amount of mirror sand being sucked into the Xingli Palace. Bad luck, because there are many mirror sand creatures embedded there, serving as the supple gears of the cradle garden to absorb the power of existence. If Qin Ren does not stop the action, these mirror sand creatures will be exposed directly. Qin Ren has not completed the plan yet, so he naturally does not want to be exposed. And stopping the action of the mirror sand creatures will reduce the amount of power of existence he harvests. However, Qin Ren is also thinking of ways to mix his mirror sand into the interior of the Xingli Palace. Unexpectedly, the opportunity came. Whether it is good or bad, Qin Ren can only say that fortune and misfortune are interdependent. But the other side is completely good news. It doesn't matter if the mirror sand creatures are sucked away, just absorb more. In the Xingli Palace, Shanna and Wilhelmina, who destroyed the absorption device, immediately rushed to the location indicated by Ma Qianglin. But on the way, when passing through a hall, a black chain flew out from the side. Red Lotus Odachi, Shanna hurriedly waved the Shinagra, and the large sword wrapped in blazing red flames suddenly collided with the black chain. Two figures appeared in front of them. In the central area, Hecate, wearing a white robe and a white hat, was connected to Yuji Sakai through the huge Chaos Temple. The huge power of existence was constantly being drawn out of Hecate's body through the Chaos Temple. It's being filled up tsk. This kind of words sounds very easy to be misunderstood. Little sister Hecate, who was constantly receiving memories and power of existence from Yuji Sakai, suddenly opened her eyes. A white-haired young man appeared in her field of vision. Not a disciple, no, not a fire mist warrior either. In Hecate's perception, the existence of the young man in front of her was quite abnormal. I am the lost guide, Bakulian. Hello. Qin Ren, who was remotely controlling and projecting himself with the mirror sand, smiled and said. As he spoke, he raised his hand, and the purple-black mirror sand in his hand condensed and synthesized into the shape of a gear. 0 hour lost. At the moment when the mapping was about to be completed, Qin Ren directly crushed it. It can't be exposed. However, Hikate's reaction was not what he wanted. Hikate's eyes that seemed to be emotionless just looked at Qin Ren. Who are you? No, I should ask who you are? Sighing in his heart, Qin Ren condensed a purple-black sword with mirror sand, and drew the sword to slash at Hikate. Steel flash. The purple-black blade drew a dark track in the air as Qin Ren slashed. Buzz. However, when it hit, Qin Ren did not feel much. Just using the power of existence itself, relying on the huge power of existence, Hikate directly blocked Qin Ren's attack. Although I was just pretending, it still makes me lose face to block it so easily. Wuji sword Dao. As the purple-black blade slashed out, Qin Ren deliberately shouted again, but still did not get the response he wanted. The huge power of existence directly blocked his attack. If you don't come in person, it's impossible to blast it open with brute force. Looking at the motionless Hecate, Qin Ren, who looked like a tapir, couldn't help scratching his head. The top seat, Hecate. Hecate responded as if it was disconnected and reconnected. No, according to the plot in the animation, didn't Hecate collapse because of Yuji's who are you? Oh, yes. There is also a sentence that roughly means you are an empty shell or something. Qin Ren tried to recall the plot that he had almost forgotten. However, forget it. The lost child of 0 hour has already recorded it, and there is no need to do anything extra. Moreover, the professor seems to have activated the means of transfer, and it will be too late if he doesn't leave now. Extending his right hand, Qin Ren grabbed the huge machine called Chaos Temple, and pulled it hard again. Bang! The mirror sand mixed in the interior suddenly rioted, destroying the Chaos Temple from the inside. Nani? Dantlio was frantically adjusting his freestyle when a large piece of joystick beside him suddenly exploded. The Chaos Temple has been destroyed, Professor, Domino shouted in panic. No, the rare power of existence. Dantlio pressed his temple lazily. Neither Shudinan, who was fighting with Majin, nor Belayulu, who was blocking Shanna and Wilhelmina with Libazar, expected that the Chaos Temple would be suddenly destroyed. The Chaos Temple was destroyed, so what about Hecate? Hecate. Shudinan, who looked like a synthetic beast, swung his claws vigorously, knocked Majin out, and then flew towards the location of the Chaos Temple regardless of everything. Belayulu did the same, rushing out without thinking. Without his partner, Libazar had no intention of fighting two people alone and rushed out directly. What happened? Shanna, who was a little embarrassed, found it hard to understand why the enemy who had the upper hand turned around and ran away. I don't know, either. Wilhelmina was also puzzled. However, at this moment, a figure rushed out from the other side. Shanna and Wilhelmina immediately took precautions, and Shanna's large sword also swung out directly. Ding! Exclamation mark. Hey, Hey, wait a minute, it's me. Along with the sound of metal clashing, a white-haired young man appeared, and on his shoulder, he was carrying a black-haired boy, the guide of the lost. So it's you, isn't it hard to say? Qin Ren teased, and then said, hurry up and leave. Dandan Kyujiu has already activated the free transfer method. If you don't leave, you will be teleported to another place together. Do you want to be teleported into the base camp of the disciple? After saying that, Qin Ren rushed out of the castle carrying Sakayuji, who had not yet woken up. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.